AITA for publicly confronting my sister during her wedding toast and exposing her sweetest bride image as a lie. Hey Reddit, buckle up. This is not just messy, it's decades in the making. I, 32F, recently attended my younger sister, Hannah's 28F wedding, and yes, I caused a scene. A quiet one, but a scene nonetheless. And now half my family is calling me an attention-seeking AH, while the other half is sending me private messages saying, "Thank you for finally saying it, so here we are." Background: the golden child and the problem one. Growing up, our family looked perfect on the outside. Dad was a respected ER doctor. Mom stayed home, baked cookies for every bake sale, and was president of the PTA. We lived in a nice neighborhood, went on camping trips, and had matching Christmas pajamas. Behind closed doors, not so idyllic. From the moment Hannah was born, she was the chosen one. Everyone adored her. Blonde curls, huge dimples, sang in the school choir, always smelled like baby powder and sunshine. I was the older, more awkward one, serious, bookish, not conventionally cute, and apparently too oppositional. I wasn't rebellious in the dramatic way. I didn't sneak out or do drugs, but I questioned things. Why did Hannah get a bigger room? Why did she never get punished for hitting me? Why did my clothes come from Walmart while hers came from boutiques? The answer was always the same. Stop being difficult. You're older. You should know better. The seed, quiet abuse. By the time I was 10 and she was 6, she had learned exactly how to manipulate our parents. If I touched her stuff, she'd scream until they took away my allowance. If she broke something, she'd cry and blame me, and they'd believe her every time. I once got grounded for 2 weeks because she told them I called her stupid. I hadn't. But I had told her to stop following me around when I had a friend. Over. Apparently that was bullying. By middle school, she was the princess of the house. I was the maid. She made messes. I cleaned them. She cried. I got punished. She wanted a puppy. I walked it. And if I pushed back, it was, "Don't ruin the peace. You know how sensitive she is." I moved out for college at 18 and never really looked back. I built a life. I got therapy. I tried to forgive. But the core wound remained. My parents didn't just have a favorite. They had a scapegoat. The wedding fast forward to now. Hannah's getting married to a guy named Matt. Nice enough, bland as toast, and has no idea who she really is. I kept things civil. I showed up to the bridal shower. I bought an expensive air fryer off the registry. I even helped coordinate her bachelorette trip, despite being mostly ignored in every group chat. Then came the wedding. It was a picture-perfect ceremony. Flower crowns, a string quartet, tears, laughter. I was genuinely happy for her, or trying to be, but I felt like a ghost the whole day. No one introduced me. I was seated with the miscellaneous cousins. My name was misspelled in the program. Again, then came the toasts. Dad gave a heartfelt one. Mom cried through hers. Then Hannah stood up and said she had a surprise. She wanted to give a spontaneous toast to her family. Her words exactly, "I just want to thank my amazing parents, and especially my sister. You were always my role model. You protected me. You were so patient with me, even when I was annoying. You always made me feel safe. I couldn't have asked for a better big sister. I know I didn't always show it, but I always looked up to you." The room went misty. She wiped a single tear and I snapped. The confrontation. I didn't stand up and yell. I didn't throw wine. I just quietly walked up to the mic when she was done and asked the DJ, "Can I say a few words?" He looked panicked. I assured him it would be brief. I looked at Hannah and smiled. I said, "That was a beautiful speech. And you're right, you didn't always show appreciation. Because the truth is, you didn't treat me like a sister. You treated me like a punching bag. And our parents let you. You weren't just annoying. You were cruel. For years." And I swallowed it. I did my best to move on. But standing here, listening to you rewrite history for a round of applause, I can't stay silent. So I'll say this. I hope your marriage is built on truth, because this speech wasn't. I handed the mic back, dead silence. Then the polite clinking of forks on glasses as someone tried to awkwardly lead a toast. I went to the bathroom. When I came back, my mum was in tears. Dad wouldn't look at me, and Hannah had locked herself in the bridal suite. I quietly left before cake. Aftermath. The next day, my parents called me a monster for ruining the happiest day of Hannah's life. Hannah posted a long Instagram caption about how family can be the harshest critics. A cousin messaged me privately and said, "Honestly, thank you. You just said what the rest of us knew but were too afraid to bring up." Two aunts texted me saying I should apologize, even if I had a point, because you don't bring up trauma at weddings. I haven't responded to any of them. I know it wasn't the time or place, but if not then, when? When she has a baby and writes another sappy tribute about how I helped raise her. When our parents die and she gives a eulogy, claiming we were always best friends. I'm done being silent for other people's comfort, but still, was I the asshole? Edit. Answers to common questions. No, I didn't plan it in advance. It was a genuine moment of boiling over. Yes, I've had therapy. Years of it. This isn't about bitterness. It's about boundaries. I didn't stay for the reception. I left immediately after and haven't spoken to Hannah since. So, Reddit, AITA, for calling out my sister's fake wedding speech and breaking the illusion of our perfect family. AITA for refusing to split the emergency fund my dad left me after my brother accused me of lying about my role in his care. Hi, Reddit. This is going to be long and likely divisive, so I'll try to lay it all out clearly. I, 29F, recently lost my dad after a prolonged illness. After his passing, my older brother Liam, 33M, and I got into a massive argument over something our dad left behind, an emergency fund that was meant only for me, and now my entire family is split down the middle. So here's what happened. The family setup. My dad, Alan, was a single parent for most of our lives. Our mom left when I was 5 and Liam was 9. She moved across the country to find herself and eventually remarried and had another family. We kept in contact sporadically, but she was never in the picture in any meaningful way. My dad was a quiet man. Not emotionally distant, just understated. He wasn't the "I love you every day" type, more the kind who would bring you tea when you had a cold, or who spent 3 weeks building me a custom loft bed when I was 12, because I said I wanted to live up high like a treehouse. He was a computer engineer, logical and introverted, and carried a lot of weight after my mom left. Financial stress, emotional damage, all of it. But he never broke in front of us. Now Liam was always the golden boy. Star soccer player, honors, student, got into Stanford on a sports scholarship. Our dad was proud of him but never doted. He was proud in a quiet way, like showing off Liam's photo on his desk or driving 5 hours to watch him play, even if Liam barely acknowledged it. Me. I was the creative one. I wrote stories, doodled, was kind of dreamy and introverted. Dad and I bonded more deeply over time, especially after Liam moved away. The illness. About 4 years ago, Dad was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. It came on slow, then fast. He was 58. It was devastating. At the time, I had just moved back to our hometown after my graduate program. I'd planned to travel, maybe teach abroad, but when we got the diagnosis, everything stopped. Liam was living in another state with his wife and 2 kids, working in finance. The next 3 years of my life were consumed by caregiving. I moved in with Dad. I reduced my work hours and eventually transitioned to remote freelance. I managed his medications, doctor's appointments, grocery shopping, power of attorney paperwork, insurance claims. I wiped food off his chin. I sat with him through nights of confusion. I held his hand when he forgot who I was. Liam visited, maybe once every 6 months. He sent money occasionally, which I appreciated, but he rarely called. His excuse was always, "I don't want to remember him like this," or "They're the kids," or "You're better at this kind of thing anyway." Dad got worse and it got lonelier. There were weeks where I felt like I was dying right alongside him. The emergency fund. About a year before he passed, Dad sat me down one of the few lucid nights we had left. He gave me a folder labeled "In case of everything." Inside was a copy of his will, bank information, a handwritten note that said, "I know you've given up a lot for me. There's an account in your name, not part of the will, it's for you. No one else knows about it. I'm sorry I can't do more. Please take care of yourself when I'm gone." I checked. There was a separate bank account under my name with about $95,000 in it. It blew me away. He'd been setting aside money for years. Little by little, from freelance projects and dividends, I wept, not because of the money, but because he saw me. He saw the invisible sacrifices, the depression, the isolation, and wanted to give me a life raft. He passed 6 months later. The funeral and the blow-up. Liam flew in with his family for the funeral. He gave a beautiful eulogy that made him sound like a devoted son. People cried. I bit my tongue. Afterward, while we were sorting through the estate, the will was read. Everything, the house, remaining savings, $80K, car, etc., was split 50-50 between us. I had no issue with that. I just wanted to grieve. Then one night, Liam came into the kitchen and said, "So, there's something weird on Dad's financials. There's a large chunk missing. Over $90K. Did you know anything about that?" I told him yes and explained the account. I showed him the folder, the note. I was honest. His face turned cold. He said, "So what, you just pocketed $100,000 behind my back?" I replied, "It wasn't behind your back. He left it to me, privately, not part of the estate." He went off, accused me of manipulating Dad, of taking advantage of a sick man's guilt. Said I was exploiting our father's condition to line my pockets. Said that if the roles were reversed, he would have split it with me immediately. I reminded him I had spent 3 years of my life caring for our father, full-time. That he hadn't even called more than once a month. That he missed Dad's last birthday. He said, "You think I owe you for being the martyr. You think changing diapers earns you a payout." I said, "It wasn't a payout, it was a thank you. We haven't spoken since." The fallout. His wife messaged me saying I was tearing the family apart over money. Our mom? Yes, the same. One who left. Somehow got wind of it and said, "You should have split it. It's what a real family would do." Mutual cousins are split. Some say I deserve it for the years I gave up. Others say I'm being greedy. My therapist says I need to let go of the guilt, but I still feel it. Sometimes I stare at that account and feel sick. I haven't touched a penny. I don't feel like I stole anything, but I don't feel great either. So, Reddit, AITA for keeping the $95,000 my dad left me privately, even though my brother thinks I manipulated him into it? Edit. A few clarifications. Yes, the account was entirely in my name. He began setting it up 2 years after his diagnosis, long before he lost capacity. He was still lucid and working part-time from home then. No, I didn't ask him for anything. I found out about it the same day he told me. I kept it secret until after his passing, just as he asked. I haven't spent $1 of it. I'm still deciding what to do. Update. 2 weeks later, Liam's lawyer contacted mine. He's trying to build a case that my dad lacked mental capacity when he created the account. The lawyer's response was simple. The account was created years before the major symptoms set in. With full documentation, witness statements, and even emails from Dad about it. I'm exhausted. I didn't want this fight. I wanted to grieve, but now I feel like I'm fighting to keep my own memories intact. Thank you for all your responses. The support means more than you know. Hyatt for refusing to move out of my mum's house after her death, even though my biological siblings claim I was never really her child. Hi Reddit. Strap in, because this is long, emotionally messy, and I'm still not sure if I'm completely in the wrong or just morally in the grey. I, 27F, lost my mum 2 months ago, and it's turned my world upside down. Not just because of the grief, but because of what came after. I say my mum, but I need to clarify. She wasn't my biological mother, let me explain. The backstory. When I was 10 years old, I was in foster care. My birth parents had their rights terminated due to long-standing abuse and neglect. I won't go into details, but let's just say it was bad enough that I still flinch at loud noises and can't sleep with the door closed. At age 11, I was placed with Margaret, a single woman in her mid-40s with 3 biological kids. Ellen, then 17, Brian, then 15, and Grace, then 13. From the outside, it probably looked like a temporary placement. Margaret wasn't rich. She was a middle school librarian, and she already had 3 kids of her own. But she took me in like I was hers from day one. She fostered me for 2 years, then adopted me when I was 13. She was the first person who ever bought me birthday gifts, who helped me do a science fair project, who hugged me without flinching. She showed up to parent-teacher nights, taught me to drive, sat with me after my first heartbreak. She was my mother, no question. Her 3 kids, my siblings, were polite to me, but we were never close. Ellen left for college the year I moved in. Brian was quiet and distant. Grace was civil, but she was a little mean in that way that middle school girls are, always calling me the stray when Margaret wasn't around. They weren't cruel, but they weren't loving either. In high school, I started calling Margaret Mom. She cried the first time I did. I'll never forget that. After college, I moved back into her house to help care for her when she was diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's. This was 5 years ago. None of her other kids were around. They all lived in other states, had careers and families. I was the one who was there every single day, cooking, driving her to appointments, sitting through tremors, watching her slowly lose pieces of herself. She passed away peacefully this February. I still cry in the laundry room because that's where she used to fold clothes and sing along to Norah Jones, The Will. Now here's where everything exploded. Mom had a will drawn up 3 years ago. In it, she left her house, mortgage-free, 3-bedroom to me. Her savings, around 80K total, split equally among the 4 of us. Her jewelry, keepsakes, books and photo albums to me, with the note, she was the one who will cherish them. She named me executor of the estate. I wasn't surprised. She had talked to me about this openly. She said, I don't love you less because you didn't come out of me. I love you because I chose you. My siblings were furious, especially Grace. At the reading of the will, which was done virtually with the estate lawyer, Ellen and Brian were visibly upset but stayed quiet. Grace, however, immediately said, this is completely unfair. That house is our childhood home. She lived in it for 30 years before you even showed up. I calmly said, it's what Mom wanted. She said, she was sick. You manipulated her. You were here constantly. You probably brainwashed her into thinking she owed you something. The lawyer interrupted and explained that the will was notarized and witnessed 3 years ago when our mom was fully cognitively sound. She'd updated it 6 months before her death only to confirm her wishes. Grace replied, then she must have hated us, or she was so lonely she gave everything to a foster kid who knew how to play the long game. I left the call crying. Not because of the house, but because she reduced me to a stray dog who was only loyal for scraps. The fallout. Since then, things have gotten ugly. Grace has started telling extended family that I stole the house. Brian emailed me asking if I'd be willing to sell and split the profit 4 ways to be fair. I politely declined. Ellen has been the most quiet. She sent me a letter saying she didn't agree with Mom's decision, but won't fight it. They've all unfriended me on social media. Someone, I'm 90% sure it was Grace, went on my mom's Facebook memorial page and posted, some people only show up when there's something to gain. I've been living in the house since before Mom died. I cared for her. I managed her medications. I cleaned up when she couldn't make it to the bathroom. I held her hand when she was too weak to speak. I was there. And now I'm being painted. As some manipulative intruder who stole from real family, I've started questioning myself. I didn't ask to be adopted. I didn't ask for this house. I didn't ask for a mother. But I got one. And I loved her. Now I feel like I'm caught in a moral war. Do I give up the house to keep peace with siblings who never really treated me like family? Or do I honor the woman who gave me a home when no one else would? So Reddit, AITA for keeping. The house my adoptive mom left me, even though her biological kids think I don't deserve it. Edit 1. Answering some questions. No, I'm not planning to sell the house. It's my home, and it's full of her. The kitchen window she used to. Garden under. The worn spot in the floor where her chair rocked for years. I have no plans to cut contact permanently, but I've muted all of them for now for my mental health. The will is airtight, and I've spoken to the lawyer again. They have no legal standing to challenge it. Edit 2. Small update. I got a letter. In the mail today from Grace. It was a handwritten list of expenses she'd incurred over the years, summer camps, braces, private school, with a note saying, "You should consider repaying Mom's investment in us if you really cared about being fair." I didn't respond. I lit a candle, played Norah Jones, and made my mum's favorite soup. I miss her every day. AITA for refusing to give my sister the heirloom necklace and exposing the truth about our family's inheritance at my father's funeral. Hi Reddit. I-28F need some perspective on a situation that has literally torn my family apart. And yes, I know everyone says that, but this isn't just drama over a Thanksgiving turkey. This happened at my dad's funeral. It's long, it's messy, and I might be the villain. You tell me the backstory. My sister Rachel, 34F, and I were raised by our single dad Tom after our mum died when I was 6 and Rachel was 12. Rachel was always different with him. Where I had a warm, open relationship with him, we watched movies together, cooked, had real conversations. She was colder, more transactional. She's always been extremely ambitious. She left for an Ivy League college at 18, got a law degree, moved to New York, and has only come back for holidays and occasionally big family events. Even then, she'd stay in a hotel and bring a new boyfriend every time. I live in the same town as my dad and saw him weekly, did his groceries, helped him with tech stuff, took him to appointments. Our dad was a quiet, humble man, a retired high school history teacher with a passion for vintage books, jazz records, and his garden. We didn't have a flashy life growing up, but he was a smart investor. Unbeknownst to most of our extended family, he inherited a bit of money from his parents and invested wisely in the early 2000s. Nothing extravagant, but enough to comfortably support both Rachel and me after his passing. He always told me, "It's not about leaving you rich, it's about giving you freedom." But here's where the cracks start. The necklace. There's a necklace in our family, a delicate platinum chain with a sapphire pendant that belonged to our great-grandmother. It's not worth a fortune, maybe a few $1,000s, but it's always been treasured more for its sentiment. Every woman in the family has worn it at her wedding for 5 generations. When I was 16, my dad gave it to me privately, wrapped, in a velvet box with a handwritten note. "This belongs with you, you carry the stories." He told me he wanted me to have it, because he knew I cherished the family's history. While Rachel had once scoffed at old lady jewelry, I kept it in a safe deposit box and never wore it, saving it for my wedding day. Still unmarried, but that's another story. The will 2 weeks before he passed, cancer very fast, diagnosed stage 4 in June, gone by August, he asked to review his will with me. It was clear. The house was to be split 50-50 between Rachel and me. All financial assets were split evenly. The necklace was explicitly left to me. A letter was attached explaining why. We agreed not to share this with the rest of the family until after the funeral, just so things wouldn't get clouded with drama. Well, turns out drama doesn't wait. The funeral was surreal. So many people came. Students, old friends, colleagues. I held it together until the end. Then came the reception at my dad's house. That's when it happened. Rachel pulled me into the kitchen and said, "Hey, so I'll take the necklace tonight since I'm flying out tomorrow." I was stunned. I calmly told her, "Dad left it to me." She laughed like a short, cruel scoff. "Don't be ridiculous, I'm the oldest. Grandma wore it at Mum's wedding. It's supposed to be mine." I said again, "It's in the will." That's when she lost it. She started yelling in front of our aunts and cousins. "You manipulated him. You were always his favorite. You isolated him at the end, and now you're hoarding everything like some twisted Cinderella." I told her I wasn't going to do this here today, but she kept going. She accused me of pressuring him into changing the will while he was medicated. She said I was always the emotional one, and probably used that to my advantage. I was humiliated and grieving and exhausted, and I snapped. I said loudly enough for the room to hear, "You want to talk about manipulation? How about the 10 years you didn't even call him on his birthday? How about the time you asked him for 30 kilos for your startup and ghosted him for a year when he said no? You cared about him when it was convenient. I was here holding his hand when he died, The room went dead silent. She called me a bitch and stormed out. The fallout. Since then, things have exploded. Rachel's side of the family, mostly extended, relatives we barely see, says I humiliated her on the worst day of her life and weaponized grief. My side, our dad's siblings and family friends, say Rachel had it coming. Rachel is now threatening to contest the will. She claims I influenced our dad in his fragile state, even though his lawyer finalized it months before he got sick. Mutual friends have told me she's spinning the story as I stole her inheritance and publicly shamed her to look good. I never wanted a fight. I wanted to grieve my dad in peace, but she turned the day into a battlefield, and now I'm being painted as the villain for honoring a will, protecting a memory, and defending myself. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my sister the necklace and for exposing the truth at the funeral, Sehen Edit. A few clarifications based on the DM's comments. No, the necklace was never promised to Rachel. She never expressed interest in it until after Dad died. Yes, I have proof of the will, including his signed letter, a witness and video statements recorded months before his diagnosis. Rachel was notified about the will in advance. My dad sent her a copy via his lawyer, but she claimed she didn't open the email. Edit 2. Update. I spoke to my dad's lawyer today. Rachel is trying to contest the will, but her case is very weak. It would cost her more in legal fees than the necklace is worth. The lawyer is confident she'll back down after making noise. Also, I went to the safe deposit box today and held the necklace. I read Dad's note again. I cried like I hadn't yet since he passed. No matter what Rachel says or does, I know what he wanted. And I know who I am. Thank you, Reddit, for helping me. Hold that line. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding after she used my trauma in her vows. Hi, Reddit. Buckle in because this is going to be a long one. I, 26F, have an older sister, Katie, 31F, who got married last weekend. For context, Katie and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's always been the golden child, prettier, more outgoing, straight-A student, the one our parents bragged about. I was always the difficult one, bookish, anxious, and more sensitive. I was diagnosed with complex PTSD in my late teens due to a history of abuse from someone outside our immediate family, a situation Katie always tried to downplay, saying I was too dramatic. Despite everything, I've tried to maintain a civil relationship with her. I've been in therapy for years and worked hard to heal. Katie never really acknowledged any of it, and while I didn't expect her to, I at least hoped she'd respect my boundaries. Spoiler, she didn't. Fast forward to her engagement. I was happy for her, genuinely, and agreed to be one of her bridesmaids, even though I wasn't super close to her fiancé, Mark, 34M. Everything seemed fine. Dress fittings were uneventful, bachelorette party was tolerable, and while there was the usual drama, nothing completely insane. Until the wedding day. Now here's where things start to go nuclear. The ceremony was held at this beautiful vineyard, very Pinterest perfect. I was standing up front with the other bridesmaids when Katie started her vows. She started off sweet, reminiscing about how they met, how he supported her through tough times, etc. But then she said, "When I think about strength, I think about my sister. Even though she made everything about her trauma for years, she taught me how to be resilient." I froze. I thought I misheard her. "But nope," she continued, basically framing my trauma as some kind of life lesson she had to endure to become a stronger person. In front of 120 people, including my co-workers, extended family, my therapist. Yes, she was a guest, long story. And worst of all, my ex-boyfriend, who I haven't seen since our very messy breakup. It felt like someone had ripped open my chest. I left the stage. I didn't even make it subtle. I walked down the aisle and out of the venue, sobbing. I don't even remember how I got to my car. I just sat there for an hour before driving home. Here's where it gets messy. Apparently, after I left, there was confusion, then whispers, then my mom started crying, then the groomsmen were trying to do damage control. The reception still happened, but the mood was awkward, from what I heard. I didn't attend. Later that night, I got a barrage of texts from family. half of them furious I made the wedding about myself, and the other half asking if I was okay. Katie herself texted me a long message saying I embarrassed her in front of everyone who matters, that I always find a way to center myself, and that her wedding wasn't the time or place for one of my meltdowns. I didn't respond. The next day I posted a short story on Instagram, close friends only, with no names, just a quote, "It's wild when someone uses your pain as decoration for their big day." That apparently set off a second firestorm because someone screenshotted it and sent it to Katie. She blew up at me again, saying I was trying to sabotage her marriage, that Mark's family thinks I'm unhinged, and now she's so humiliated she might never forgive me. My dad, of all people, called and said while he didn't like what she said in her vows, I should have sat quietly for her sake, and my reaction caused more damage than her words ever could have. I'm just stunned. I didn't ask to be part of her vows. I didn't want to be a footnote in her love story, especially not in a twisted, passive-aggressive way. But now I'm questioning everything. Should I have just gritted my teeth and stayed quiet? Did I ruin her wedding by walking out? Am I just too sensitive? So, Reddit, AITA Edit 1. Wow. I didn't expect this to blow up. Thank you for the awards and kind messages. To answer a few questions. My therapist was invited because she's a close family friend and has been in my life since I was 15. She was attending in a personal capacity, not professional. I have not spoken to Katie since the wedding. I'm not sure I want... Guys, no, I never gave her permission to use anything about my trauma in her vows. In fact, I've asked multiple times for her not to bring it up in public or family discussions. Edit 2. Update. After reading your replies, I decided to email Katie. I kept it brief and said, "Your wedding was supposed to be about you and Mark. You made a choice to use my trauma without consent. That wasn't love, that was exploitation. I won't be engaging further." I blocked her on everything. Thanks, Reddit. You gave me clarity when I needed it most. Am I the a-hole for cutting my best friend out of my life after she betrayed me over a business deal? Our friendship and the dream businessy, 30F, met Sarah, 29F, in college. We clicked instantly. She was vibrant, funny, and fiercely loyal. And we became inseparable over the years. After graduation, we dreamed of starting a business together. We both had a passion for handmade jewelry and decided to launch a small online shop. We pooled our savings, brainstormed designs, and worked countless late nights. It was our dream, a way to build something together that reflected our friendship and creativity. For 2 years, things went great. We grew a decent customer base, and our bond felt stronger than ever. Sarah was not just my business partner, but my closest confidant. We shared everything, from personal dramas to financial worries. But cracks started to show about 8 months ago when Sarah met Mike, 32M, a local entrepreneur. Mike seemed charming, confident, and full of business ideas. Sarah was excited about his connections and started spending more time with him, talking about expanding the business. At first, I welcomed the help. We needed investment and expertise. But gradually, Sarah started excluding me from conversations and decisions. Mike's influence grew, and Sarah became secretive about deals and finances. I felt uneasy, but trusted my best friend. The betrayal unfolds one day. I discovered that Sarah and Mike had secretly registered the business under Mike's name, cutting me out completely. They also signed contracts with suppliers and distributors without my knowledge. It felt like a gut punch. Everything we built together was being stolen from me. I confronted Sarah. She said she did it to protect the business and that I was holding them back with my old-fashioned ideas. She claimed Mike had the experience to scale things up and that I should be grateful for the opportunity. I was furious and heartbroken. I tried to reason with her, suggesting a compromise, at least equal shares and transparency. But Sarah dismissed me, accusing me of jealousy and paranoia. She blocked me on social media and stopped responding to my messages. Mike started contacting me, trying to convince me to sell my share of one which technically didn't exist anymore. He offered a lowball price and threatened legal action if I interfered. I felt powerless and betrayed. Fighting back and losing a friend, determined not to lose everything, I hired a lawyer. The legal battle was exhausting and costly. Sarah accused me of sabotaging the business and trying to destroy her new relationship. Our mutual friends took sides, many believing Sarah's version. Through the process, I uncovered emails showing Sarah deliberately hiding information and signing deals that benefited Mike personally. The more I dug, the clearer the betrayal became. But the hardest part was losing Sarah, my best friend turned enemy. The memories of our laughter, dreams, and late-night talks felt like a cruel joke. I questioned everything about our friendship and myself, the aftermath and what comes next. After months of legal battles, we reached a settlement where I got some financial compensation, but no involvement in the business. Sarah and Mike took full control. I closed my social media accounts related to the shop and started focusing on healing. I've since started a new project alone, learning from the experience. I still grieve the loss of the friendship, but I'm slowly rebuilding trust in people. I've told this story to a few close friends and reactions have been mixed. Some say I should have seen the warning signs. Others say I was right to fight for what was mine. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for cutting Sarah out of my life and fighting so hard over the business? Was I justified in standing up for myself, or did I let ambition ruin a friendship? Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my brother's fiancée be part of our wedding after what she did to my mom? The family wedding that was supposed to bring us together, my 28F, have always been close with my family, especially my older brother Mark, 31M. We grew up in a small town, went through the usual sibling fights, but at the end of the day we had each other's backs. Our parents divorced when we were kids, and my mum did her best to raise us with love, despite all the hardship. She's the kind of woman who works multiple jobs and never complains, always putting us first. Mark started dating his now fiancée Olivia about 2 years ago. Olivia, 27F, seemed sweet enough on the surface, charming, polite, and seemingly interested in our family. At least that's what we thought. The first few months were fine, but as time went on, I began noticing subtle things about Olivia that made me uneasy. She would make snide remarks disguised as jokes about my mom's modest job or subtly criticize the way we lived, as if everything about our family was beneath her. I shrugged it off at first. Maybe she was just insecure or trying to impress Mark. The real trouble started when Mark announced their engagement 6 months ago. Our family was thrilled, planning a big celebration to bring everyone together after a tough couple of years. My mum was especially excited. She had always dreamed of seeing her kids happy and settled. But soon, Olivia's true colors began to show too. The lies, manipulations, and Mum's breakdown. It started with small things. Olivia insisting on helping plan the wedding, but disregarding our family's traditions and wishes. She pushed for a lavish, expensive ceremony that none of us could realistically afford. When my mum voiced concerns about the costs and suggested a more modest approach, Olivia mocked her behind her back and subtly tried to isolate her from the planning process. But the worst part was what Olivia did to my mom personally. Our mom has a medical condition, chronic migraines, that she manages with medication and lifestyle adjustments. Olivia, in a fit of jealousy or something darker, began spreading rumors in our small town that my mom's migraines were all in her head and that she was exaggerating to get sympathy or money. It was cruel, humiliating, and completely false. Mom was devastated when she heard about this. She confronted Olivia during a family dinner, hoping for a civil conversation. But Olivia denied everything and turned the blame on Mum, accusing her of being dramatic and trying to sabotage their relationship. The confrontation ended with Olivia storming out and my mum breaking down in tears. I felt powerless watching this unfold. Mark seemed oblivious, caught between defending his fiancée and comforting our mum. It was heartbreaking to see the woman who raised us being attacked. In her own family. Taking a stand in the family rift as the wedding date approached, Olivia's behavior worsened. She began to exclude my mom from key events and pressured Mark to side with her whenever there was conflict. She told him that my family was too old-fashioned and too small town for her ambitions. Mark started changing too. He became more distant and defensive. One day I discovered a series of private messages between Olivia and one of her friends, where she laughed about getting Mom to break down and how she owned the family. That was the last straw for me. I showed the messages to Mark and begged him to reconsider the wedding, or at least put a stop to Olivia's cruelty. Mark's reaction crushed me. He told me I was overreacting and that Olivia was under a lot of stress and that I was making things worse. When I insisted on standing up for Mum and confronting Olivia, Mark told me flat out that if I didn't stop, I'd be excluded from the wedding and family events. I couldn't believe it. The brother I loved was choosing his fiancée's lies over his own mother and sister, so I made a decision. I told Mark I wouldn't attend the wedding if Olivia was part of it. I told my mom the truth and promised we'd find a way to support her no matter what. The fallout and questioning myself. Since then, the family has been fractured. My parents are hurt but supportive. Mark hasn't spoken to me in weeks. Olivia has spread rumors about me being jealous and controlling, trying to paint me as the villain. Some family members think I'm overreacting and that I'm sabotaging Mark's happiness. I'm torn. I miss my brother and the family we once were, but I can't stand by and watch Olivia hurt the people I love, especially my mum. I know standing up to her is risky and might cost me relationships, but I refuse to let her manipulate and destroy our family from within. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to let my brother's fiancée be part of our wedding after everything she did to my mom? Am I justified in protecting my family, or should I try harder to keep the peace even if it means sacrificing my mom's dignity and my own values? Am I the a-hole for cutting my sister out of my life after discovering what she did to my husband? The perfect marriage and the cracks. Beneath 33F have always thought my life was pretty straightforward. I met my husband, David, 35M, 8, years ago, and we hit it off immediately. We have 2 kids, a dog, and a house in a nice neighborhood. By all appearances, we were the perfect family. My younger sister, Jenna, 29F, has always been a little difficult. She's smart and talented, but tends to be manipulative and selfish. I always tried to look past it, hoping she'd grow out of it. Growing up, she was the wild child, and I was the responsible one. We rarely clashed openly, but there was always an undercurrent of jealousy from her side that I could feel but never wanted to confront. David and Jenna had never gotten along well. They clashed often when she visited. I usually chalked it up to typical sibling-in-law friction. But about a year ago, something shifted. David started coming home late from work more frequently, becoming secretive about his phone and whereabouts. I tried to brush it off as work stress, but I had a gnawing feeling something was wrong. One night I found David's phone unlocked on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower. It was unlike me to snoop, but the anxiety got the better of me. What I saw shattered my world. There were dozens of texts from Jenna, flirty and intimate, messages that made it clear they'd been having an affair for months. Photos, plans to meet secretly, even messages about her wanting to leave her current boyfriend to be with him. My heart sank, disbelief and rage flooding every part of me. I confronted David that night. At first he denied everything, then broke down and admitted it. He said it was a mistake, that he felt lonely, that Jenna had come on to him when I was away on a work trip. I was furious but also heartbroken. David begged me to forgive him. I told him I needed time. But then I messaged Jenna. I told her I knew everything. She didn't deny it, instead she twisted the story, claiming David had pursued her, that she'd tried to resist, but he pushed her. I was sickened by the betrayal from both of them. But what truly broke me was Jenna's last message. You don't deserve him. You never did. That stung more than the affair itself. The web of lies and the family fallout. I tried to keep the family out of it at first. I wanted to handle it privately. But Jenna couldn't keep her mouth shut. She told our parents, painting me as the controlling sister who was overreacting. They took her side, saying David had made a mistake, but that I was too unforgiving and too cold. My parents have always been partial to Jenna, maybe because she's the baby or because she's better at manipulating them. It felt like a second betrayal. My relationship with David became strained. I couldn't trust him anymore, and he resented my coldness. I couldn't look at Jenna without seeing a snake. I stopped inviting her to family gatherings. She'd call, text, begging me to just talk, but I blocked her. I wanted to protect my kids from the drama. Things escalated when Jenna showed up uninvited at our house one night, drunk and demanding to see David. I told her to leave. She screamed at me, calling me a jealous, bitter witch who was destroying her family. That night I called my parents to tell them what happened. Instead of support, I got a lecture about how I was being unreasonable. Feeling isolated, I decided to cut Jenna out of my life completely. I deleted her from social media, changed my phone number, and told my parents I wanted no contact with her. They didn't like it, but they agreed to back off. But Jenna didn't stop. She began sending anonymous letters to David's work, pretending to be his secret admirer. She sent emails to my boss, claiming I was having an affair with a co-worker, which was totally false, trying to ruin my reputation. David got a disciplinary warning because of her. I was livid. It wasn't just an affair anymore. It was a vendetta. One night, David told me something that broke me. Jenna had been sneaking into our house when we were away, stealing items, leaving threatening notes. The police got involved. Jenna was arrested for breaking and entering, but was released due to lack of evidence. The darkest moment and the shocking truth, I was at my lowest. I felt trapped, betrayed, and exhausted. I started therapy and worked on rebuilding trust with David. We decided to try couples counseling, but the scars ran deep. Jenna's presence haunted me like a ghost. I felt unsafe in my own home. Then, something happened that I never saw coming. One evening, I received a phone call from an unknown number. A woman's voice spoke softly. "I know what Jenna really is. You deserve to know." She introduced herself as a former friend of Jenna's from college. She said Jenna had a history of manipulating men, playing victims, and destroying families. But the worst part? Jenna had done something terrible to another sister she had, one I never knew existed. Apparently, before I was born, Jenna had an older half-sister, Rachel, who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Jenna had spread lies about Rachel to keep her out of the family's life. Rachel had tried to expose Jenna's lies about various people, but Jenna sabotaged her. The story went that Rachel had left town, but the woman said Jenna was responsible for pushing her away, possibly worse. I was stunned. My family had secrets buried deep beneath the surface. Facing the consequences and finding my own strength, I confronted my parents with the new information, demanding answers. They denied everything, refused to talk about Rachel, and accused me of being paranoid. My mother told me to stop digging up old ghosts. But I couldn't let it go. I decided to hire a private investigator. What I found horrified me. Rachel had died in a suspicious car accident 5 years ago, something that had been hushed up. Jenna had been the last person to see her alive, and there were rumors Jenna had caused the accident, but no charges were ever filed. I went public with everything. I told David's story, Rachel's story, and my decision to cut Jenna out of my life. I blocked Jenna from all communication and told my parents that unless they acknowledged Rachel's death honestly and apologized, I wouldn't be part of their lives either. It's been 6 months now. My relationship with David is healing slowly. I'm rebuilding trust, focusing on my kids and myself. Jenna has tried to contact me through lawyers, but I refuse to engage. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the villain. Am I the a-hole for exposing my sister, tearing my family apart and never forgiving her for what she did? I know what she did was wrong, but I can't help feeling guilty for abandoning her and my parents. So Reddit. Am I the a-hole for cutting my sister out of my life after discovering the affair and the lies? For exposing the family's dark secrets and forcing them to confront the past? Or was I justified in protecting my marriage, my children, and my sanity? Am I the a-hole for exposing my mother's secret double life and shattering our entire family? The birthday dinner that started at Ollie, 28M, have always had a complicated relationship with my mother, Karen, 59F. She was warm and charismatic. In public, the kind of woman who baked pies for neighbors and organized PTA meetings. But behind closed doors, she was strict, overbearing, and at times emotionally manipulative. My older brother, Sam, 31M, got the best of her. At least that's how it always felt. She doted on him, praised him, excused everything he did. With me, it was different. If Sam got a B, it was because the teacher was unfair. If I got an A, it was because I didn't try hard enough, but I kept quiet. That's just how it was. My father, Greg, 61M, was a quiet man, worked long hours, paid the bills, rarely argued. He seemed content to let my mother run the household. They weren't affectionate, but they never fought either, just distant. I never saw them kiss or even hold hands. Growing up, I thought that was normal. Maybe some marriages just lose the spark. A few months ago, everything began unraveling, though I didn't realize it then. It was Sam's birthday, and we were all having dinner at our parents' house. Me, Sam, his wife Emily, their daughter Lucy, and my girlfriend, Lily. My mum made lasagna, Sam's favorite, and she was in her usual form, laughing, doting, showing off childhood photos of Sam. At one point, she pulled out a box of old family photos and passed them around. That's when I saw it. A photo I'd never seen before. My mum holding a baby, me, but next to her was a man I didn't recognize. He wasn't my dad. He was tall, olive-skinned, with dark, curly hair. My mom had this strange, almost nervous smile in the photo. I froze. "Who's this?" I asked. My mother went still. For a second, just one, she looked terrified. Then she laughed. "Oh, just a friend. That was a trip I took with the girls, before you were born. Someone took the photo and I must have gotten mixed up. It didn't make sense. I was in the photo. I pressed, but she brushed me off. Everyone moved on. But something in me didn't. That photo stuck in my head. I had never questioned my parentage before. Why would I? I looked vaguely like my dad, or so I thought. But now I was seeing this new face, and something in my gut twisted. That night, I scanned the photo with my phone. I zoomed in. There was a hospital bracelet on her wrist. It had my name, my birth date. And that man was standing by her side, holding her hand. I didn't sleep that night. Uncovering the lie over the next few weeks, I started digging. Quietly, carefully. I didn't want to set off alarms. I requested my birth certificate. Everything looked normal, father listed as Greg. But then I remembered something. My mom used to keep a locked drawer in her old study. She always said it had insurance stuff in it. When I was younger, I picked the lock once and got grounded. For a month, I remembered how to open it. One afternoon when she was out running errands, I swung by under the guise of helping fix their Wi-Fi. I opened the drawer. Inside were old letters, dozens of them. Some were dated before I was born, others afterward. They were from a man named Miguel. In beautiful, looping handwriting, he wrote about his love for my mother. How excited he was for our baby. How he wished she'd leave that cold husband of yours and run away with him. Then there was one letter, dated 3 months after I was born. It was short. "Karen, I saw the birth announcement. You named him after your father, not me. You told me you'd finally leave Greg, but you didn't." I waited. I waited at the hospital. I watched from across the street. I saw him carry the baby to the car. I guess I have my answer. Goodbye. Miguel. I stared at that letter for hours. Then I took a DNA test. I didn't tell anyone. I just waited for the results, checking the app every morning. When they came, it was like being punched in the chest. Greg was not my biological father. There was a 99.9% match with a man named Miguel Ortega. Miguel. The man in the photo, the man in the letters. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. I had lived almost 30 years thinking I was one thing, and now I was another. And my mother had lied to everyone. She had let Greg raise a son that wasn't his. She had let me grow up thinking I was his, and she had never told a soul. I told Lily. She was horrified but urged caution. "This is going to shatter your family," she said. "Are you sure you want to open that door?" But I couldn't live a lie. I needed the truth out, for me, for Greg, for everyone. The confrontation that broke everything. I waited for the next family dinner. It was Easter, so everyone was there. We were at the table, passing around plates. When I said it, "I have something to say." The room went quiet. I stood up and looked right at my mom. I took a DNA test. I said, Greg's not my father. There was a moment where time froze. Emily dropped her fork. Sam looked confused. My dad just blinked. My mom? She went pale, then red, then back to pale. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I found the letters, Mom, I said. From Miguel. That was it. The dam broke. My mom started crying. Not soft tears, sobbing. She covered her face, shaking, mumbling, I'm sorry, over and over. My dad sat there, completely still, as if made of stone. Then he stood up and walked out. Just left the house without a word. Sam looked at me like I had just stabbed someone. What the hell, man? I had to tell the truth, I said. You did this here. On Easter, what is wrong with you? She lied to all of us, I shouted. You didn't even ask her privately. You just dropped this bomb? She wouldn't have told the truth. She never tells the truth. My mom was still sobbing, begging, saying it was complicated, that she had loved Miguel, but Greg had been the safe choice, that she was young, scared, and stupid, that she thought she could bury it and pretend everything was fine. But it wasn't fine, not for me, not for my dad. The aftermath and the silence that followed. My dad hasn't spoken to anyone since that night. He moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. Sam blames me, says I destroyed our family for some ego trip. He won't return my calls. Emily blocked me on everything. Even Lily has grown distant. She says she supports me but can't handle the emotional mess. My mother sent me a long letter, handwritten, tear-stained, full of justifications. She said she loved me even if Greg wasn't my biological father. She begged me to forgive her. She said she thought she was doing the right thing, that it wasn't about lying, it was about survival. But I can't forgive her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because she stole my identity. She let me live a life built on a lie. She let a good man raise a child that wasn't his and never gave him the truth. The worst part? Miguel died 5 years ago. A car crash. I'll never meet him. Never ask him why he didn't fight harder. Never see his face in mine. All I have are a few letters and a broken legacy. So now I'm here, alone, a family torn apart, a truth exposed, and I can't help but wonder, am I the a-hole for telling the truth about who I really am, even if it destroyed everything? Am I the a-hole for destroying my sister's marriage after she stole my identity and lied for a decade? The sister everyone loved, and the secret she kept for years, I 31F, grew up in the shadow of my older sister, Alina, 34F. She was beautiful, confident, charismatic, the kind of person who could walk into any room and command attention without trying. I was quiet, introverted, bookish. Where she had cheerleading and prom queens, I had spelling bees and science fairs. Our parents adored her. Even when she got caught shoplifting once at 17, my dad brushed it off as youthful rebellion. When I got a B+ in calculus, it was a disappointment. Still, I didn't hate her. I genuinely admired her. I figured she was just the golden child and I wasn't. I focused on getting out. I got a full scholarship to a university 4 states away and left as soon as I could. I studied computer science, made a few awkward but kind friends, and began building a life that felt like mine. I graduated summa cum laude, landed a job at a cybersecurity firm, and started working remotely from a little studio I loved. Alina, on the other hand, stayed in our hometown. She married her high school sweetheart, Jason. He was always the quiet jock, a good guy, if a little bland. They had 2 kids by the time she was 27, and she posted endlessly on Facebook about being a Jew boy mom, her perfect life, and her homemade bento boxes that somehow made it into BuzzFeed once. Everyone thought she was living the dream. Jay drifted. She was busy, I was busy, and if I'm honest, I always felt like I was boring to her. I'd try to talk about my work, my code, even my cats, and she'd nod and change the subject to her son's baseball trophies. I didn't push it. Some siblings are just different. That's fine. But then, 2 years ago, something weird happened. I got a call from a random bank in California, asking why I was trying to open a line of credit for a Tesla dealership. I hadn't. I lived on the East Coast. They asked me to verify some information, my birthday, last 4 digits of my SSN, and that's when my stomach dropped. They already had all that. I reported it as identity theft, A full investigation followed, credit checks, legal consultations. I was paranoid for weeks. Then the bomb dropped. Whoever had used my identity had done it over 10 years ago. That's how long it had been going on. At first, the details didn't make sense. The credit trail wasn't just in California. There were rentals, job applications, even medical bills in 3 different states under my name. I didn't understand how someone could have faked it that long without me noticing. Until I remembered, I hadn't really built credit until college. And even then, I used a secured card. I was credit invisible for a long time. It wouldn't have raised flags. Then came the second bomb. One of the addresses used for a fraudulent account was my sister's old address, the one she lived in when she and Jason were first married. I confronted her gently at first, asked if she knew anything about my name being used. She played dumb. That's so weird. Maybe it was someone I used to sublet to, I pressed. She got defensive. Finally, I said flat out, "You stole my identity, didn't you?" Her face went pale, and then she cried, sobbed even, collapsed into a chair and said she didn't mean for it to go so far, that it started as a joke. She used my name and info to get a store card for a sale when she was broke and pregnant with her first son. But it spiraled. She used my info to get a better car loan when her credit tanked, then a rental, then utilities. She justified it by saying, "Well, you weren't even using it." I was stunned. I told her she had a week to come clean to Jason and our parents, or I would. She didn't, so I did. The fallout. Nobody believed I would actually trigger when. I told Jason. He thought I was lying at first. "Alina would never do something like that," he said. I showed him paperwork. I showed him the emails from the fraud investigator. I showed him the letter from the credit company saying they were pursuing legal action unless the matter was resolved. He turned white, then red, then completely blank. It took 2 more days for him to confront her, and when he did, she didn't even deny it. She said I was ruining her life over some petty mistake. Jason moved out the next day. My parents were furious with me. They said I was tearing the family apart, that it was just a few credit cards and Alina was under pressure, and what's a little paperwork compared to your sister's family? They begged me to take it back. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked my mum how she would feel if someone had used her name and SSN to rent apartments and buy cars. She said, "But that's your sister." They said Jason should have forgiven her, that I should have just let it go. They called me vindictive, cold, that I had always resented Alina's success. I laughed out loud when they said that. Her success? That she bought a house under my name because her credit was garbage? That she posed as me when applying for jobs she never kept? That she forged my signature on at least 3 contracts? That wasn't success. That was theft. A week later, Alina was served. Civil charges, identity theft, fraud. I'd had enough. I could have dropped it. Maybe I should have. But I couldn't live in a world where she stole 10 years of my financial identity and just kept pretending like it didn't matter. Jason filed for divorce. Their kids stayed with him. He was awarded temporary full custody. Alina's life unraveled like thread from a cheap sweater. Everyone hates me and I don't know if I care anymore. It's been almost 8 months since I filed charges, and I've never felt more alienated. From my own family. My parents have stopped inviting me to holidays. My cousins call me dramatic in our group chats. One even said I'm punishing the kids, because now they don't see their grandparents as often. But none of them had their credit destroyed. None of them had to sit in a lawyer's office and listen to someone say, "Well, technically you're liable for this lease unless we can prove fraud." None of them had to freeze their credit, write letters to banks, or prove that they were really themselves. Sometimes I see Jason's boys, my nephews, when I visit. They're too young to really understand. They just know Auntie Lena can't see them for a while. Jason told me he's looking into therapy for them. I offered to help pay. As for Alina, she lost everything. Her job, her husband, her house. She moved back in with my parents. She blames me for all of it. Says I could have handled it privately, that I ruined her life out of jealousy, that nobody's perfect. The last time we spoke, she said, "You think you're better than me, but you'll die alone. You don't have love, you don't have kids, you just have spite. Maybe she's right. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I live in a one-bedroom apartment with 3 laptops and 2 cats. But you know what? I do have my name, my identity, my life, and no one's going to take that from me again. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Everyone I grew up with thinks I went nuclear when I could have just quietly let it go. I could have worked something out or kept it in the family. But to me, 10 years of theft isn't a misunderstanding. It's a violation. And she did it because she thought she'd never get caught, because I was the quiet sister, the pushover, the one who always forgave her for everything. But I didn't this time. I said no. I filed the reports. I made her face consequences, and now I'm the villain of the family. So Reddit, you tell me, am I the a-hole for turning my sister in and destroying her marriage after I found out she stole my identity for over a decade? Am I the a-hole for refusing to adopt my dead brother's baby because of what he did to me? The golden brother and the forgotten one. Growing up, my brother Daniel, deceased 36M, was the golden child. I, 33F, was the quiet, overlooked sibling, the accident that followed after years of my parents thinking they were done having children. Daniel was brilliant, handsome, outgoing, and from the time he was 10, people said he was going to do something big. And he did. He graduated from Stanford, started his own company in Silicon Valley, married a stunning woman named Rachel, and became a millionaire by 30. I, on the other hand, worked my way through community college, then earned a nursing degree while working part-time at a diner. My parents never outright said I was a disappointment, but their tone said enough. You're doing fine for yourself, sweetie, considering. Daniel, of course, bought our parents a condo for their retirement. I bought them a microwave. Our relationship wasn't exactly close. We weren't estranged, but he didn't see me as an equal. He tolerated me. He'd make jabs about my noble blue-collar calling, joke about how I could always marry rich if nursing didn't work out. I told myself it didn't matter. I had friends, a small apartment, a cat named Orbit, and a life that I built with my own hands. Daniel was a part of my life, sure, but we weren't emotionally connected. And then, almost 2 years ago, that changed when Daniel and Rachel announced they were having a baby, after struggling with infertility for nearly 6 years. The pregnancy was complicated from the start. Rachel had a pre-existing autoimmune condition, and her pregnancy was high risk. There were constant scares, bed rest, monitoring, hospital visits, and suddenly Daniel was calling me, asking for advice, emotional support, even financial logistics. They lived across the country, but when Rachel hit 30 weeks, Daniel asked if I could come help them for a few weeks, just in case. For the first time, I felt needed by him. I rearranged my work schedule, took unpaid leave, and flew out. Rachel went into labor at 32 weeks. It was terrifying. She nearly died. The baby, a little girl named Lily, was born premature and immediately taken to NICU. Rachel developed complications and ended up in a coma. I stayed at the hospital with Daniel for 4 days straight, sleeping on chairs, making calls to family, and crying with him. I'd never seen him so broken. When Rachel eventually passed 2 weeks later, Daniel became a ghost of himself. He walked, talked, ate, but he wasn't there. And then 6 months later, Daniel was gone too. A drunk driver, dead on impact, just like that. The request that unraveled everything, at the time of Daniel's death, Lily was 10 months old. After the funeral, while everyone was still mourning, I got called into a meeting with Daniel's estate lawyer. I assumed it was about logistics, sorting his belongings, maybe something about his will. I did not expect to be told that Daniel and Rachel had named me as Lily's legal guardian. There was no fallback. No, if not her, then someone else. Just me. I remember laughing at first, out of shock. My brother, who'd once said I wasn't cut out for real parenting, who never invited me to any of Lily's baby showers or nursery planning, suddenly expected me to raise his daughter. The lawyer handed me a letter. It was from Daniel, dated about a week after Rachel died. It was short. It said, "If anything happens to me, I want you to raise Lily. I know I never told you this, but I trust you more than anyone. You're the..." Only person who's always been real. Not perfect, not fake, just real. I know you'll protect her from all the things I didn't. I'm sorry. Please forgive me for everything I said to you over the years. I love you. That letter changed everything and nothing. I went home that night in a fog. I kept rereading the last line. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Over and over. What did he mean? And then the truth came out. A few weeks later, while I was still struggling with the guardianship decision, I got a call from Rachel's sister, Marla. She asked if I had found anything. I asked what she meant, and that's when she told me about the affair. Daniel had cheated on Rachel repeatedly, not just with one woman, with multiple women, for years. He'd even had an ongoing thing with his secretary. Rachel had discovered it all just months before her pregnancy and had nearly left him. But they stayed together because of IVF, because they thought a baby would save them. Rachel never told anyone, not even her parents. Marla only found out after reading old journal entries. Rachel had hated Daniel at one point, described him as manipulative, narcissistic and emotionally cold. She called herself a baby incubator in one entry. My head spun. The man I thought I knew, the brother who supposedly trusted me, was a stranger. I thought about the letter. The guilt, the I'm sorry. He knew what he did. He knew how broken things were. And he wanted me to clean up after him. I said no, and it tore the family apart. When I told my parents I wasn't going to take Lily, they were stunned. Mum cried. Dad didn't speak to me for 3 days. They called me selfish, unforgiving. You're punishing an innocent baby for your brother's sins, they said. And maybe I am. But here's the truth, I don't want to raise a child, I never have. I love kids, I work with them all the time, but I love going home at the end of a shift. I love my solitude, my silence, my cat, my life. Taking in Lily wouldn't be like babysitting for a weekend. It would mean sacrificing my entire lifestyle, my future, my freedom. I'd need to move, rework my job, give up travel, give up me. For what? For a man who never treated me like an equal, who cheated on his dying wife, who left me a mess to clean up and called it love. I told the lawyer I was declining guardianship. The state would find a suitable foster home, or a relative on Rachel's side might step up. Marla later confirmed she was open to adopting Lily, but had limited financial means. I offered her financial support, even offered to co-sign her adoption and provide a monthly stipend if she needed it. My parents were livid. They said I was dumping blood on strangers. I told them blood doesn't mean loyalty. It doesn't mean love. Daniel never gave me that. Why should I now give my life to his child? 4. Am I the a-hole for saying no? That was 6 months ago. My family hasn't spoken to me since. Marla officially adopted Lily last month, and I visited a few times. She's a sweet baby. Smiles like Rachel. She'll grow up never knowing the full extent of the chaos she was born into, and that's probably for the best. I send money, toys, help with doctor visits when asked. But I don't call myself her aunt. I can't. Not yet. Sometimes at night, I wonder what would have happened if I'd said yes. If I'd become the parent I never intended to be. I imagine a life of daycare drop-offs, first steps, birthday parties. It's not a nightmare, but it's also not my dream. Reddit people have called me heartless, that I'm selfish, that Daniel finally showed me respect and I spat in his face. But I don't see it that way. He didn't respect me. He used me as a last resort, as a guilt-driven failsafe. I loved my brother, but I don't owe him my life. So, am I the a-hole for refusing to raise my brother's daughter because I couldn't forgive what he did? To me, to his wife, and to himself? Am I the a-hole for letting my sister's wedding collapse after she hid a massive secret about my husband? The confession that cracked my world open, I, 32F, used to think my sister Erin, 28F, and I were as close as two siblings could get. We shared a room growing up, had matching necklaces as teens, and stood by each other through the hardest parts of our lives. Our father's death, our mum's cancer scare, and a dozen breakups. She was the maid of honor at my wedding to my husband Nathan, 34M, 6 years ago, and I was excited to return the favor when she announced her engagement to a guy named Jason last year. But a month ago, Erin sat me down and dropped a bomb that made me question everything. Not just her loyalty, but my entire marriage. She said she needed to clear her conscience before the wedding. Her eyes were red and she was shaking. I assumed she was going to confess something like cheating on Jason before they got serious, or maybe bad-mouthing my husband behind my back. I was not prepared for what she actually said. 5 years ago, after your wedding, Nathan and I kissed more than once. I laughed at first, not because I thought she was joking, but because my brain refused to believe what I'd just heard. She clarified, after my wedding, Nathan had a fight with me, which I vaguely remember. It was about whether to honeymoon with his family in Italy or go somewhere new. We'd argued late into the night. Erin had come to comfort him. It was stupid, she said, just a few kisses. We both regretted it. But then she added something that made my heart stop. I thought you should know before I walk down the aisle, because I don't want to carry that into my marriage. She wanted absolution, closure. She didn't care that she had detonated a nuke in my head. I told her to get out. She cried. I didn't. I confronted Nathan that night. He went dead silent. Then he said, I was drunk. I didn't think she'd ever tell you. When I asked how far it went, he swore it was just a kiss. I asked if they'd ever done anything else, texts, secret meetings, even flirtations. He said no, but my gut burned. I felt like my skin didn't fit anymore. I wanted to scream, but instead I told him to leave. I needed space. He moved into a hotel the next day. Over the following week, I became obsessed with trying to piece together the truth. I dug through old phone bills, emails, anything I could find. I saw that Nathan and Erin had exchanged several late-night calls in the months after the wedding. One lasted over an hour at 1:23 a.m. I called her. She said they were talking about your mum's diagnosis. But my mum wasn't diagnosed until a year later. That was the moment I knew something deeper had happened. I spiraled. My therapist told me I didn't need all the facts to feel betrayed, that the feeling was enough, but I couldn't let it go. Not when the people who'd betrayed me were walking around like nothing happened, getting married, starting. Over to the wedding that shouldn't have happened, Erin kept texting. She apologized again. She begged me to still be her maid of honor. It would mean everything to me, she said. I want to start this new life with you by my side. I couldn't believe the audacity. I told her she'd permanently burned that bridge, but she insisted. She even got our mother involved. Mom told me, she's trying to do the right thing, sweetheart. People make mistakes. I asked her if she would have said that if Erin had kissed Dad. She went quiet. I realized then that even though I wasn't the one who messed up, I was being told to forgive, move on, and protect the peace. That made me furious. But I stayed quiet. I attended the wedding. I wasn't in the bridal party, but I went. My mother begged me to be civil. I watched my sister walk down the aisle in a white lace gown, smiling like she hadn't shattered something in me. I watched Nathan, standing in the back with his hotel lobby smile, acting like we hadn't slept in separate houses for weeks. I watched Jason, the poor, sweet man, beam with pride, completely unaware of what his future wife had done. Then came the toasts. Erin's best friend gave a sweet speech about growing up with her. Jason's brother made a joke about never thinking. His little bro would settle down. Then Erin stood up and surprised everyone with an impromptu speech of her own. She talked about forgiveness, about how true love is built on honesty. She never said what she meant by that, but I knew. It was a performance, her final attempt to frame herself as brave. People clapped. I didn't. What I did, and why I did it, I thought I could stomach it, that I could sit there, let her have her big day and go home in silence. But something in me cracked when she looked at me from the head table and mouthed, "Thank you." Like I'd been part of her redemption arc, like I'd done her a favor. So I stood up. I didn't shout, I didn't scream. I just walked calmly to the mic and said, "Hi, I'm Erin's sister. I wasn't going to say anything today, but since we are talking about honesty and love," I told the room about the kiss. I told them how my husband and my sister shared more than a mistake. I told them how I'd been asked to keep it quiet so she could have her perfect wedding while I lived with the fallout. I said I wasn't there to sabotage, but to free myself from their lie. The room went still. Jason looked like he'd been punched. He didn't say anything, just stood up and walked out. Erin chased after him. Her veil flew off behind her. Half. The guests started whispering. Some stared at me like I was a monster. My mum burst into tears. Nathan in the back looked like he wanted to die. I walked out, got in my car, and drove straight to the beach. I stayed there for hours. Didn't even check my phone. I felt numb, empty, but calm for. So, am I the a-hole? That was 3 weeks ago. The fallout has been nuclear. Jason hasn't spoken to Erin since. He moved out and filed for annulment. My mother hasn't stopped calling me. She said I humiliated our family and that I ruined my sister's life for a grudge. Erin's friends are split. Some support her, some cut ties. My dad's side of the family mostly backs me, but they're staying quiet to avoid picking sides. Nathan and we're officially separated. He's staying with a friend, but last I heard he's been trying to work on himself. I don't care. I've started divorce paperwork. I won't ever take him back. I've had nightmares every night since that day, but I've also felt lighter. Still, some people, especially my mum and a few mutual friends, think I should have kept it quiet, that a wedding isn't the time or place, that I could have waited, pulled Jason aside privately, or written a letter. That maybe I was vengeful, spiteful, cruel. I didn't plan it, but I won't lie, I don't regret it. Erin chose her truth when she confessed to me. She just didn't like how it turned out when I chose mine. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for revealing my sister's betrayal during her wedding and letting the whole thing fall apart? Am I the a-hole for telling my brother's fiancé about his other family? The secret I wish I never learned. This all started when I agreed to do something I never should have, cover for my older brother Ryan during a weekend trip. He told me he had a guy's getaway planned with a few co-workers and needed me to pick up a delivery from his house for our mom's birthday. No big deal. I swung by his place while he was out of town, let myself in with the key under the... Matt grabbed the gift and froze when I saw a baby bottle in the sink. Weird. Ryan and his fiancée Clara don't have kids. They were planning to wait until after the wedding, which was just a few months away. The bottle wouldn't leave my head. Clara is a clean freak. Her kitchen's usually spotless. It looked fresh, too. Then I noticed a folded-up stroller near the front door, a pink one. I told myself maybe it was Clara's friends or something. I left, trying not to spiral. Later that day, I got a Venmo notification. Ryan had accidentally paid me for something meant for someone else. The note said, "For formula, thanks, babe." I stared at it for a solid 10 minutes. I was about to call him when he beat me to it, begging me not to mention anything. "It's not what you think," he said. "I'll explain everything." Later. Later turned into a week, then 2. Then I found out on my own Ryan isn't just cheating. He has an entire second family, a woman named Juliana and a 10-month-old daughter named Bella. They live across the city in a modest apartment he pays for under a shell business name. I found their photos online, him with his arm around her, at a zoo at a pumpkin patch, holding Bella like she was his world. There were comments under the posts from Juliana's friends calling him Super Dad. I confronted him in person, shaking with anger. He tried to play it off at first, saying he got in over his head, that it just happened. I asked how long. He admitted it had been over 2 years. He met Juliana when he was on a break with Clara. They weren't. He never told her he was engaged. When she got pregnant, he panicked, then figured he could manage both lives if he was careful, and until recently he had. I told him he was insane, that he needed to come clean, that Clara didn't deserve this, and neither did Juliana. He got furious, defensive, said I was judging him without understanding the pressure. He said Clara's family was rich and funded half his business. If they found out, he'd lose everything. I didn't care. I told him I'd give him 2 weeks to come clean, or I would. He begged. He manipulated. He gaslit. "You'll ruin Bella's life," he said. "Do you want my daughter growing up without support?" I almost caved. Almost. Then Clara called and asked if I could help her finalize a surprise for Ryan's birthday. She was giddy. She was planning a slideshow of childhood photos and their future family. She told me she'd started fertility, Treatments early to surprise him with the good news after the honeymoon. That night I emailed her everything. The fallout that tore us. Apart, Clara didn't reply. Not for 3 days. I figured she was either in denial or plotting nuclear war. When she finally responded, it was a single sentence. Can we meet? We met at a cafe near her work. She looked like a ghost, like she hadn't slept in days. She didn't say much, just stared at me while I slid over the folder I'd put together. Screenshots, photos, dates, the Venmo note, even a copy of Bella's birth certificate I pulled from public records. She didn't cry, just nodded and said, "Thank you. I knew something felt off, I just didn't want to see it." The next part was chaos. She cancelled the wedding. Ryan came unhinged. He called me screaming that I'd destroyed his life, that Clara's parents pulled funding from his startup and he was on the verge of bankruptcy. I told him to grow up and take responsibility. But that wasn't the end. Clara, bless her, didn't just walk away quietly. She contacted Juliana, told her everything. I don't know what was said between them, but the result was clear. Juliana kicked Ryan out of the apartment, blocked his number, filed for full custody, and she didn't do it quietly. She went public on social media, on mom forums, even emailed Ryan's investors. A few posts went viral. One of the headlines was, "Tech bro with fiancé keeps secret family on the side." Ryan lost most of his funding. His business partner walked. My parents? Oh boy, they lost their minds. They weren't mad at him. They were mad at me. Family. Protects family, my dad yelled during a screaming match. You think you're some hero, but all you did was destroy your brother's life. I couldn't believe it. My mom said I should have come to them first, that they could have handled it privately, that Clara wasn't really family yet, so why throw blood under the bus? I asked if they heard themselves. He was living a double life. He had a daughter. What if that girl grows up thinking she's a mistake because of him? They didn't budge. My mom said I'd always been too moral for my own good. Toogs. Moved out. I stopped talking to them. Christmas came and went. I wasn't invited. The letters, the lies, and the little girl months passed. I started therapy. I tried to let go, but then I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name on the envelope in Juliana's handwriting. Inside was a photo of Bella smiling, her curly hair tied up in pigtails, and a thank you note. Juliana said that after she found out the truth, she was devastated, but grateful. She said she'd suspected something for a while, but Ryan always had excuses. Business trips, family drama. Clara is my cousin's wife. The lies were endless. She said knowing the truth gave her strength to walk away, even when it hurt. Bella now lives with Juliana full-time. No visits from Ryan. He tried briefly to get partial custody, but the court sided with Juliana after she submitted all the evidence, including my documentation. She thanked me for breaking the illusion, even if it was ugly. I keep the photo on my fridge. I think about that girl growing up, never knowing her dad chose to play pretend instead of be real. I think about Clara, who moved across the country and is now back in grad school. I think about how Ryan might never recover and how maybe that's okay, and yet, was I the a-hole? Now that the dust has settled, I've started to doubt myself. Not because I think Ryan didn't deserve consequences. He absolutely did, but because of the scope of what happened. I didn't just end his engagement. I torched his business, obliterated our family dynamic, and basically ensured his daughter won't have a father figure unless he radically changes. And part of me wonders if I went too far. If sending all that to Clara was necessary. If maybe I should have just sent Ryan's confession and let her figure out the rest. My therapist says I did the right thing. That hiding abuse, because yes, living a lie this big is emotional abuse, only perpetuates generational cycles. But my parents won't speak to me. My cousins think I'm a snitch. Ryan says he'll never forgive me. Even Marcus, our cousin, said maybe I could have handled it more delicately. But then I remember Bella's face in that photo. I remember the look in Clara's eyes when she realized her whole future was fake. And I remember Ryan telling me, I can handle both lives if I'm careful. So here I am, lonely, vindicated, sad, relieved. So Reddit, Am I the a-hole for exposing my brother's secret family and blowing up his entire life? Am I the a-hole for exposing my sister's secret that destroyed her marriage and our family? The perfect sister. Everyone loved my sister Rachel was always the golden child. The one who got straight A's, the one who went to law school, the one who never disappointed our conservative, reputation-obsessed parents. I'm the youngest of three. Our brother Marcus is in the middle, a quiet engineer who mostly kept to himself. Me? I was the artsy black sheep, the college dropout turned tattoo artist. I live above my shop, I have purple hair, and I'm the one our mom always whispered about when church friends were over. Rachel and I weren't close growing up. She treated me like an embarrassment, a liability she had to explain away. When I was 17 and came out as bi, she told me I was just trying to be trendy. When I got my first tattoo, she said I looked like a drunk biker's girlfriend. But despite the judgment, I kept showing up at family events, smiling through the passive-aggressive digs, pretending we were okay. Rachel married Alex 5 years ago. Alex was too good. Seriously. Thoughtful, funny, handsome, always helping out in the kitchen, always remembering birthdays. He even helped me move once when my back gave out. And he genuinely loved Rachel, which made it even harder to stomach. The secret I found out last Christmas: the family was all together at our parents' house. Rachel and Alex flew in from their place in New York. Marcus brought his wife and baby. I was on my third glass of wine and had just stepped outside for some air when I saw Rachel through the kitchen window, laughing over her phone. She wasn't alone. She was whispering something to Marcus's wife, Emily, and showed her the screen. The expression on Emily's face? Absolute shock. I'm not proud of what I did next. When Rachel set the phone down and went to get more drinks, I slipped in through the side door and picked it up. The screen was still open. The texts weren't from Alex. They were from someone named Liam. And they were graphic. Scrolling up, I realized the affair had been going on for at least 7 months. Photos, flight confirmations, hotel reservations. It wasn't just emotional. It wasn't a fling. Rachel was in love with this man, and she was cheating on Alex with the recklessness of someone who thought she'd never be caught. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't sleep. I kept seeing Alex playing with my niece in the snow, carrying Rachel's suitcase, rubbing her back during family dinner like a man completely unaware his life was a lie. I wanted to confront her, but I knew how that would go. She'd deny it. She'd say I misinterpreted. She'd twist it around and somehow make me the villain. She always did. So instead I sat on it, waited, and things only got worse from there. The breaking point in March, Alex called me. Out of the blue. He asked if he could commission a tattoo for their upcoming anniversary, something meaningful. He wanted a small compass on his ribs because Rachel is my true north. I had to mute the phone and cry. This man had no idea. His wife was planning to spend their anniversary in Paris with Liam. I'd seen the tickets in her emails. Don't ask how. I found the password she reuses from a birthday card years ago. After the call, I cracked. I texted Rachel and told her we needed to talk. She agreed to a FaceTime. I recorded the whole thing. I told her I knew. She didn't deny it. In fact, she laughed, said Alex was boring and Liam made her feel alive. When I asked if she planned to leave Alex, she said, eventually, but not until after Dad's retirement party. I don't want to cause a scandal. That was the moment I snapped. She wasn't just betraying Alex. She was manipulating our entire family to maintain an image. So I made a decision. I sent the video to Alex. No explanation, no commentary, just the file. He watched it, then disappeared. For 2 weeks. When he resurfaced, it was through a lawyer. Rachel was served divorce papers the day before Dad's retirement party. She showed up to the event red-eyed and furious. I wasn't invited. My mom called me that night screaming, "What the hell did you do? Why would you destroy your sister's life?" "You've always been jealous of her," I told her. The truth, that Rachel had been cheating for almost a year, that she laughed about it. That she planned to keep Alex around until after the party, so she could use him one last time. Mom didn't care. "She's your sister," she said. "Exactly," I replied. "That's why I couldn't let her keep lying." Phew. Fallout and family. Civil War, the family shattered. Alex moved back to his hometown. His mum sent me a thank you note, said I saved her son from a life of quiet misery. Rachel tried to control the narrative, told people I was mentally unstable and had hacked her phone. But the video didn't lie. Marcus and Emily sided with me. Quietly. Emily said she had always suspected something was off. But when they tried to explain that to my parents, they were shut down. Mum doubled down on the jealous sister theory. Dad stopped talking to me entirely. I didn't go to Easter or the 4th of July barbecue. My parents said I wasn't welcome until I apologized. Apologized for what? For not letting Alex waste more years of his life. For not protecting a liar just because she shares my blood. Rachel started posting passive-aggressive quotes on Instagram about fake people with victim complexes. I unfollowed her. Then I blocked her. Then I deleted every photo of us from my phone. I know this might sound dramatic, but I truly feel like I lost my family this year, and yet part of me is relieved. Because for the first time, I stopped pretending. I stopped letting Rachel control the story. Was I wrong? Now that the dust has settled a little, I've started to doubt myself. Was it really my place to expose her? Should I have confronted her privately again? Should I have let her tell Alex in her own time? I know how Reddit usually responds to cheating stories. Tell the truth. Expose them. Save the innocent party. But when it's your own sister, your own flesh and blood, the betrayal cuts both ways. People think doing the right thing always feels good. It doesn't. It wrecks you. It isolates you. It turns Christmas into a Cold War and Sunday dinners into landmines. And yet Alex deserved the truth. And Rachel? She deserved to face what she'd done. But now my family may never be whole again. And I don't know if I can. Live with that. Sometimes I miss them so much it physically aches. Sometimes I scroll through old photos of us as kids and wonder how we became these people. So, Reddit, I ask you now, with everything out in the open, am I the a-hole for exposing my sister's affair and destroying our family? Lila slapped him, a sharp crack, his head whipped to the side. No one said a word. She turned to me, eyes full of tears. You knew. You saved me. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like someone who had just shattered glass and was standing in the middle of the shards barefoot. The wedding was called off on the spot. Lila walked away. Her parents followed. Ryan screamed at me. My mother sobbed. My dad called me a disgrace. I walked out of the vineyard, alone. The aftermath. Exile from the family. After the wedding imploded, I didn't go back to the hotel. I just started walking. Through the vines, through the gravel driveway, through a row of tall hedges that led to a service road where the caterers had parked. My phone started buzzing like it was possessed. Voicemails, texts, group chats lighting up. I didn't check a single one. I just kept walking until I hit the main road, flagged down a rideshare, and got the hell out of there. I ended up in a little motel 30 miles away. It smelled like bleach and cigarette smoke. The bed creaked when I sat down. The curtains were a sick shade of green, but it was the first place I'd felt remotely safe all week. I stared at the wall until sunrise. When I finally looked at my phone, I had 82 missed texts and 5 voicemails from Mom. Julia, how could you? Do you realize what you've done? From Dad, call me now. From Ryan, you ruined my life, hope you're happy. From Lila, I need to see you. Please. That one made me cry. I texted her back. We met at a little coffee shop a few towns over. She was wearing jeans, no makeup, and a hoodie with the word bride still stitched across the chest. Her engagement ring was gone. I should have known, she said, stirring her coffee with a plastic stick. I kept catching him lying about stupid things, but I just didn't want to believe it. You loved him, I said. That doesn't make you stupid. She laughed bitterly. It kind of does. We talked for hours. She cried. I cried. I showed her every screenshot I had. DMs, emails, geotagged photos. There was one where Ryan was making out with a woman on a rooftop bar, taken 2 nights before his bachelor party. That one broke her. She excused herself to the bathroom and didn't come back for 10 minutes. When she did, her face was pale. "I don't know what I'm going to do now," she whispered. "My life was planned around him." "You'll be okay," I said, squeezing her hand. "This is the worst part, but it gets better." That was the last time we spoke in person. She moved back in with her parents the next week and started therapy. I heard through mutual friends that she quit her job, cancelled the honeymoon tickets, and returned all the gifts. She unfollowed Ryan on everything. As for him, he went nuclear. Ryan told everyone I'd always hated him, that I was jealous, that I'd faked the messages, that I was mentally unstable and obsessed with ruining love. And my family ate it up. Mom stopped speaking to me completely. She blocked me on every platform. Dad sent me a lengthy email accusing me of sabotaging the family reputation. He ended it with, "We raised you better than this." My uncle uninvited me from his 60th birthday party. My cousins unfollowed me on Instagram. I didn't care about the party or the followers, but it stung more than I'd expected. At first, I kept hoping they'd come around, that someone, anyone, would ask for my side. But no one did. The narrative was set. Julia ruined the wedding. Julia made it about herself. Julia destroyed everything. I tried calling Mom once. She picked up, sighed, and said, "You embarrassed us in front of 300 people. Do you think that's something we can just forget?" "You wanted me to let her marry a cheater," I said. "That wasn't your decision to make." And then she hung up. I started therapy. My therapist, a blunt but kind woman named Dr. Lin, told me something that stuck with me. Sometimes families don't want the truth, they want comfort. You gave them truth and now they're blaming you for their discomfort. I moved apartments, got a new phone number, changed jobs 6 months later, rebuilt my life from the ground up. But the scar stayed. On holidays, I'd see photos of Ryan with my parents, him smiling next to a Christmas tree, him blowing out candles on his birthday. I was never mentioned. It was like I'd been scrubbed from the family album. And yet, I didn't regret it, because I couldn't stand by and let Lila marry a liar. I'd made a promise to myself years ago, after watching another friend go through a decade-long marriage, to a man who emotionally abused her while everyone else stayed out of it. I swore I wouldn't let that happen again, not if I could. Stop it. But sometimes I wonder, was I really right? I didn't tell Lila in private. I did it during the ceremony, in front of everyone, because I was scared she wouldn't believe me otherwise, because I panicked, because I didn't trust anyone else to care, and that's the question that keeps me up at night. The apology that never came. A year passed, spring again, cherry blossoms blooming in city parks. I now walked alone. Every petal felt like a reminder that time keeps moving whether families mend or not. I'd settled into a rhythm. Morning runs along the river, 9 to 5 copy editing gig, Thursday therapy, and weekends binging podcasts that made other people's drama feel safer than my own. Outwardly, I was fine. Inwardly, I kept rehearsing an imaginary phone call from my mother that never rang. Then, one humid June evening, an email slipped into my inbox. Subject line, "Dinner?" It was from Ryan. "Julia, I'm going to be in your city next week. I'd like to talk. Just the two of us. No parents, no drama. Let me know." My first reaction was ice-cold dread. But curiosity is a stubborn weed. Dr. Lin's voice echoed, "Closure isn't something you wait for. It's something you choose." So I chose. We agreed on a neutral restaurant, early Tuesday. I arrived 10 minutes late on purpose, a small reclaiming of power. Ryan was already there, nursing an old-fashioned, hair longer, beard thicker, playing the reformed lumberjack. When he stood, I noted the tiny tremor in his hand. Good, I thought. Let him shake. "Thanks for coming," he said, gesturing to the seat opposite. I sat. "You wanted to talk." Silence stretched while a waiter poured water. Ryan watched the glass fill like it was a crystal ball. Finally, he exhaled. "I'm in therapy, court-ordered actually, DUIs. He gave a brittle laugh. "Guess my life spiraled after the non-wedding." I folded my arms. "Actions have consequences." He rubbed his eyes. "Look, I'm not here to guilt-trip you. I wanted to, I don't know, clear the air, maybe apologize. But the way, he said, maybe told me everything. Do you feel sorry, I asked, or do you just hate being the bad guy? He flinched. I'm sorry for hurting Lila. I'm sorry you got dragged into it. I leaned forward. Dragged? Ryan, I chose to expose you because you were going to wreck her life. His jaw tightened. You wrecked mine. I lost friends, investors. Mum's still on antidepressants. I laughed, sharp as glass. Mum's pills are my fault, not your cheating, lying, gaslighting. People at the next table shifted. Ryan lowered his voice. I'm trying to do the step where you make amends. My sponsor says I need to own my part and ask forgiveness. Step 9, I said. Forgiveness doesn't mean reunion. It means accountability. Start with admitting to Mum and Dad that you lied about me faking evidence. He looked away. They won't understand. They don't have to. You do it because it's true. The waiter returned, asked for orders. Neither of us had touched the menus. Ryan waved him off. Give us a minute. I pulled a folded sheet from my purse. Here's a statement, simple. I cheated. Julia told the truth. I'm sorry. Email it to the family thread. CC me. That's step 1. He stared at the paper like it burned. You came prepared. I came for an apology. This is what one looks like. Minutes ticked. Finally, he pushed the sheet back. I can't, not yet. I stood. Then we're done. He grabbed my wrist too tight. Instinctively, I yanked free, the chair screeching. Diners looked up. Ryan's cheeks reddened. I just wanted us to be okay, he whispered. We are okay, I said. I'm living my life. You want absolution? Without confession. That's not how stories end. I walked out into humid dusk, heart pounding but weirdly light. Outside, thunderheads gathered, the first raindrops smacking warm pavement. I let them soak my hair, every step away from the restaurant feeling like a page turning. That night there was no dramatic email, no midnight phone call, just quiet. And in that quiet I realized the apology might never come, and that was finally acceptable. Closure, I learned, isn't an external gift. It's the moment you stop expecting a different past. 2 weeks later, an unexpected envelope arrived, a wedding invitation, Lila and Maya, September 14th. A seaside ceremony, small, intimate. At the bottom, a handwritten note. Would love for you to be there, my real family. I cried, messy and loud, then booked the flight. When the day came, the ocean smelled like clean beginnings. Lila, hair in soft waves, barefoot in the sand, beamed. As she married a woman whose eyes held galaxies of kindness. During vows, she thanked a brave friend who shattered an illusion so I could find something real. She caught my eye. We both teared up. Afterwards, under string lights, she pressed a seashell into my palm. For speaking when it mattered. On it, she'd painted the words truth over comfort. I keep that shell on my desk. Some nights when loneliness hums, I roll it between my fingers and remember, I chose truth. I'd choose it again. So, Reddit, tell me, after everything, am I still the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for exposing my brother's secret life at his wedding and ruining everything? The setup. A picture-perfect family. I never thought I'd be that person. The one who causes a scene at a wedding. The one everyone talks about afterward. Like a walking cautionary tale. But here I am. And honestly, even now, I can't decide if what I did was justified or if I just became the villain in someone else's fairy tale. Maybe you can be both. Maybe life isn't as black and white as the Reddit comments always make it seem. Maybe I just snapped, let me back up. My name is Julia. I'm 30 years old, the eldest of 3 siblings. My brother Ryan is 28. We've always had a complicated relationship. He's charismatic, charming, smart in a manipulative sort of way. One of those guys who makes you feel like the sun shines out of his ass until you realize too late that you've been standing in his shadow. He was the golden child growing up. Our parents practically worshipped him. He got away with everything. I, on the other hand, was the difficult one. Too emotional, too observant, too unwilling to shut up when something didn't sit right. Ryan was the kind of kid who'd lie effortlessly. If I confronted him about stealing money from my wallet, he'd flash that innocent smile and spin some ridiculous tale about borrowing it to buy me a surprise and forgetting to tell me. He was good, scary good. And while my parents always bought it, I never did. As we grew older, I distanced myself. I built my own life, I worked in publishing, moved to another city, made my own friends. But family pulls you back in, doesn't it? No matter how far you run, those invisible threads yank you home for birthdays, holidays, weddings. 2 years ago, Ryan got engaged to a woman named Lila. She was beautiful, warm, a little shy, the kind of woman who wore vintage floral dresses and rescued stray cats. The first time I met her, I liked her immediately. But something about her eyes, this flicker of anxiety when she thought no one was looking, stuck with me. Still, she seemed happy. And Ryan, he was in full golden boy mode. Doting fiancé, attentive partner, perfect son. Our parents couldn't stop bragging about him. He's finally settling down. My dad beamed at Thanksgiving. She tamed him. I almost laughed. Tamed him. Ryan was never tamed. He was simply wearing a better mask. Then, a month before, the wedding, the cracks started to show. Discovery, the messages I wasn't supposed to see, 5,000 characters. It all started with a phone call. One of those late-night wine-drunk conversations with my cousin Becca, who was always half in the know about everything going on in the family, but rarely cared enough to connect the dots. That night, though, something clicked. So weird, she said between sips of Pinot. I swear I saw Ryan on Bumble last week. Same jawline, same scar on his lip from that skateboarding accident in high school. But he had a beard in the photo, and a different name. I laughed at first. He's getting married in 3 weeks. You probably saw someone who looks like him, but the seed was planted. I couldn't sleep. The next day, against my better judgment, I made a fake Bumble profile. I set the location to our hometown. Swiped a few times, nothing. I tried again the next day, and the day after that. On day 4, there he was, Ryan, under the name Jay. Newer photos, sure, but undeniably him. Same eyes, same lazy smirk. The bio was generic, looking for something casual, no drama. But the tone was unmistakably him. I stared at the screen, bile rising in my throat. It wasn't just the existence of the profile. It was that he'd clearly been active recently. He'd swiped, he'd matched. And sure enough, I found other women who'd matched with him. I made another fake profile, posed as someone else, messaged him. Within hours he was flirting, sending half-naked mirror selfies, asking to meet up. I saved everything. I didn't know what to do. Tell Lila? Ruin. The wedding. What if I was wrong? What if he was just catfishing people with old photos as some sick ego boost? But then I looked deeper. Through some digital sleuthing, and okay, maybe hacking into an old shared Dropbox we used as kids, I found screenshots, messages, photos. Ryan with other women. Some dated during his engagement, one from just 2 weeks prior. Same hotel room he and Lila had posted about staying in for their wedding planning getaway. I felt sick, betrayed. Not just for Lila, but for every time I'd been gaslit into thinking I was too suspicious, too jealous, or too negative about Ryan. I wasn't paranoid. I was right. I took it all to my parents and they told me to keep quiet. The ultimatum: family loyalty versus moral duty. My mum didn't even look at the screenshots. She waved her hand like she was swatting away a fly. It's none of your business. Julia, if Ryan made mistakes, that's between him and Lila. I was stunned. He's cheating on his fiancée. Repeatedly. Openly. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. Don't ruin this for him, my dad added, his voice low and threatening in that way that always made me feel 5 years old again. This wedding is important. Your mother's been dreaming of it for years. Oh, I'm sorry. Is this her wedding or his? I shot back. They didn't answer. I left, went back to my hotel, stared at the evidence I'd compiled. Screenshots, messages, photos, even a voice memo where Ryan drunkenly confessed to a friend that Lila will never know. I couldn't shake the image of her smile, the way she looked at him, the way she talked about their future. She didn't deserve this. So I did what I thought was right. I gave him a chance. The next morning, I met him at a cafe. I didn't tell him what it was about. Just asked him to come. When he walked in, he looked so smug. "If this is about the toast, don't worry. I already put your name in the speech. You'll cry. Everyone will." I slid the manila envelope across the table. He opened it. His face changed, first confusion, then irritation, then fury. "You went through my stuff?" "You were cheating on your fiancée," I said quietly. "This isn't about privacy, Ryan. It's about Lila. She doesn't need to know. She absolutely needs to know." He leaned in, teeth clenched. "You say one word, Julia, and you're dead to this family." I laughed. I don't know why. It just came out of me like a bark. "You think I care? You think I've ever felt like part of this family?" He stood up. "Don't do this. Don't make a scene." But I wasn't making a scene. Not yet. The wedding day, when everything fell apart. I didn't sleep the night before the wedding. I stared at the ceiling fan in my hotel room, spinning in slow, hypnotic circles, thinking about Lila, wondering if she could sense something was wrong, wondering if I was about to blow up her life or save it. My phone buzzed multiple times, messages from my parents, my brother, even aunts and uncles. Ryan had clearly started circling the wagons. I didn't answer anyone. I was numb. The wedding was set in this over-the-top countryside vineyard. It looked like something out of a magazine. Rows of white chairs, flower arches, a small lake in the background. The kind of venue where everything smells like lavender and money. Guests began to arrive in pastel suits and designer sunglasses, smiling and sipping champagne like extras in a rom-com. I sat alone near the back. No one spoke to me. Word had spread. I was being difficult, causing trouble. My mother didn't look at me. My father walked past without acknowledging I existed. Ryan kept avoiding eye contact, but I didn't move. I just watched, like I was observing someone else's life through a thick sheet of glass. Then Lila walked in. She was breathtaking. Delicate lace veil, golden hair, tears in her eyes. But it wasn't joy. I could tell. It was nerves, fear. Or maybe she knew something was off. I wished I could hug her, tell her she didn't have to do this, that she wasn't crazy for feeling that pit in her stomach. The ceremony began. The officiant started talking about love, commitment, honesty. I stared at Ryan's face the entire time. He looked calm, serene, as if nothing was rotting beneath the surface. And then came the words. "If anyone here knows of any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." The silence was thick. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. I stood up. Gasps. Actual cinematic gasps. Heads turned. Murmurs rippled down the rows like wind through tall grass. Lila blinked at me, confused. Ryan's eyes locked on mine. Pure rage. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "But I can't let this happen." "Julia," my mom hissed, half standing. "Sit down," Ryan barked. "She's drunk. She's jealous. "I have proof," I said louder. "Lila, I'm sorry. I know this is horrible, but you need to know the truth before you marry him. He's been cheating on you, not once, not a mistake, consistently. For months, I have messages, photos, dates." Lila's bouquet dropped. It hit the ground with a soft thud that somehow sounded louder than my voice. She looked at Ryan. He didn't deny it. He didn't say a word, just stood there, frozen. Everyone was watching like it was a live reality show. "No," Lila said almost to herself. "No, no, no." I walked forward, envelope in hand, trembling but certain. I placed it on the little wooden table by the altar. "Everything is in there. I didn't want to do this in front of everyone. But I couldn't let you marry him without knowing." Ryan finally moved. He lunged forward, knocking the envelope off the table. Pages fluttered everywhere. Screenshots, selfies, chat logs. Guests gasped again. Someone picked one up. It was a photo of Ryan shirtless in bed, time-stamped 2 weeks before the wedding. "Give me a break," he said, trying to laugh it off. "We were on a break. Everyone has cold feet." Lila slapped him. AITA for blowing the whistle on my lab partner's published paper after she stole my dissertation data to get sole credit. TLDR, I, 29F, am a fifth-year PhD candidate in molecular biology. My lab partner, Sophie, 30F, quietly took my unpublished data, wrote a manuscript under her name alone, and got it accepted in a top journal. Precisely the paper I'd been preparing for my dissertation defense. I discovered the theft 2 weeks before my proposal, gathered my lab notebooks, email drafts, and code repositories, and filed an ethics complaint with our university's integrity office. The paper was retracted. Sophie's funding was frozen. Our PI is furious. Now half the department calls me a tattletale, the other half says I saved the lab's reputation. AITA backstory. Our joint project, my PhD lab, studies stress response pathways in yeast. In year 3, our PI paired me with Sophie to tackle a brand new redox sensor assay. We divided tasks. Me, designing the sensor construct, writing analysis scripts in R, running time course experiments. Sophie, optimizing growth conditions, doing Western blots, handling cell culture diaries. Over a year, we had dozens of joint lab meetings, co-authored grant proposals, and shared a single overleaf manuscript, which I saved in my own folder as dissertation paper v1.docx. Sophie always said she loved the sensor idea and would defer to me on the write-up. The build-up, my dissertation plans by. Year 4, I'd completed all experiments for chapters 1 to 3 of my dissertation. Written 60% of the thesis draft, including a detailed redox sensor chapter, replete with raw data figures, statistical analyses, and code annotated in Jupyter notebooks. Shared early draft figures with Sophie so she could add her blots and tweak panel layouts. My PI was thrilled. We set a tentative defense date for 6 months out, with the plan to submit a sensor manuscript to yeast molecular biology first. The shock, Sophie's solo publication. 2 months ago, I logged into PubMed and saw an article titled Real Time, Redox Sensing in Escherichiae, the exact title we'd brainstormed. The author list Sophie L., our PI, and the department chair. My name was nowhere to be found. I downloaded the paper. Every single figure matched data from my R output files. Only the axis labels were tweaked, but the raw values, experimental timestamps, even my internal file codes, RSXP42, RSXP43, were identical. The methods section paraphrased my thesis draft word for word. I was shocked, sick to my stomach. Confrontation and denial, I marched into Sophie's office. Me. Did you write this paper using my data? Sophie. Smiles. Of course I used our data. We both did those experiments. Me. It's everything I did. And you didn't include me as an author. Sophie. You haven't turned in your thesis. You can still be second author when it goes to a broader journal. Chill out. I reminded her she'd never asked me, never shown me a draft, and that she'd excluded my name entirely. She called it a misunderstanding, then hung up on me. I went to my PI. He'd approved the manuscript behind my back, praising Sophie's initiative. He said adding me later would muddy authorship and risk rejection. I left his office feeling invisible. Gathering evidence, realizing I couldn't rely on goodwill, I pulled every lab notebook entry for the sensor assays, dated, signed, and witnessed by our graduate coordinator. Exported my R scripts, with commit history, showing how I generated each figure panel. Retrieved our overleaf revision history, proving that the submitted manuscript was written from my folder. Collected email threads where Sophie praised my elegant code and asked me to clean up figure legends. I organized it into a 50-page PDF, annotating each slide with timestamps and file paths. Filing the complaint 2 weeks ago, I filed a formal complaint with the university's Research Integrity Office, REO. I didn't leak to the press. I wanted an internal resolution. I wrote, Dr. Sophie L. and our PI knowingly repurposed my unpublished dissertation data without consent, excluded me from authorship, and misrepresented my contributions as theirs. REO immediately launched an inquiry. The department's reckoning within days. The journal issued an expression of concern, pausing citations and notifying readers that the paper was under investigation. Our PI was called to explain why the data were published without my consent. Sophie's external grant, a 100K fellowship, was put on hold pending RIO's findings. I received temporary co-first authorship recognition on the RIO website in light of preliminary findings. The rumor mill exploded. Fallout and fractures. Sophie claims I ambushed her and betrayed the lab family. She's no longer on speaking terms with me. PI. Furious, I went over his head. He accused me of disrupting the lab and called the RIO complaint a career killer. Chair expressed disappointment that our brightest student, Sophie, is under scrutiny. Fellow grad students split in two camps. Some hero worship me for defending my work. Others say I'm too aggressive and should have negotiated. I've been excluded from lab social events. At the next group meeting, the PI pointedly dropped me from the sensor project entirely, reassigning me to peripheral experiments. My dilemma. On one hand, I stood up for my own unpublished data, followed university policy, and protected the integrity of science. On the other, I disrupted my lab's atmosphere, risked my PI's support for future letter writing, and may have painted myself as difficult in the department. My defense is months away. Every extra adversary makes it harder. Yet watching Sophie take sole credit still makes my stomach churn. So Reddit, AITA for blowing the whistle on my lab partner and advisor, leading to the retraction of my stolen data paper and Sophie's funding freeze, rather than confronting them privately or finding a less formal solution. Edit. A few clarifications. RIO's preliminary report sided with me. Sufficient evidence of data misappropriation. I offered Sophie mediation. She refused to meet. I have secured a new co-advisor willing to champion my censor work for a separate paper. Thank you for reading. I'm torn between relief that my work is safe and anxiety over how many bridges I've burned. AITA had her for leaking my stepsister's private emails to our family board after she secretly diverted profits from the winery I inherited. TLDR. When our father died, he left his historic vineyard and winery equally to my half-sister, Veronica, 32F, and me, 29F, naming me CEO. Veronica was furious at being sidelined, so she began routing select cases off books to a private distributor, lining her own pockets. I discovered her scheme in our internal emails and quietly forwarded the evidence to our family's board of trustees, who then removed her from management and froze her profit share. Now Veronica and half the family say I betrayed my own blood. The other half say I saved the winery from ruin. AITA. The inheritance and early tensions. Our dad, Robert, spent 40 years building Stanton Ridge Winery into a regionally acclaimed jewel. He married my mom young, had me then later, after mom's untimely passing, remarried Elena and had Veronica. Growing up, I lived in the city, studying viticulture and working at boutique wineries. Veronica stayed home, majored in marketing, then joined the winery's tasting room staff. We were cordial but never close. Different mothers, different worlds. 6 months before his death, Dad held us both close and said, "This winery is ours, together. But I trust you, my eldest, to guide its future." He signed a will splitting ownership 50-50, but naming me CEO and Veronica COO. When he died, Veronica stormed out of the reading, "You're the golden child. You always have been. He never meant that for me." A silent rift formed. My role. As CEO and Veronica's growing resentment. As CEO, I oversaw production forecasts, secured new distribution contracts, and negotiated with investors. Under my first quarter, we increased revenue 12% and refreshed the brand's packaging for a modern market. Veronica, as COO, managed the tasting room and early-stage marketing. She felt marginalized. Me making the big calls, her stuck pouring. Flights. She'd complain privately to staff. She gets to sign the big checks, I'm the one talking to people. I invited her to every board meeting, encouraged her to pitch ideas, and offered half her bonus if she hit new tasting room. Sales goals. Still, I sensed she was simmering with jealousy. The secret side deal. 3 months in, I noticed oddities in our monthly statements. Inventory shrinkage far above seller norm, shipments showing as internal transfer with no destination, and tasting room sales ticking upward, but total revenue flat. Late one night, I accessed our shared email server logs and found a series of encrypted messages between Veronica and an outside distributor, Valley Oak Imports. They coordinated off-the-books shipments of our reserve Cabernet cases that never hit our official ledger, but got sold at a premium elsewhere. Veronica stood to pocket 40% of each clandestine deal. My heart sank. If word got out, we'd face tax penalties, lawsuits, and irreparable brand damage. Gathering proof and the confrontation. I printed the key emails, her initial pitch. Let's bypass Dad's slow vault sales. There's a market for high-end clients who pay double. A spreadsheet with reserved profit listing her cut of $28,000 that quarter. An exchange where she coached the distributor. Don't call it Stanton Ridge. Use Oak Valley series so no one connects it back. I confronted her in the barrel room late one Friday. She was defensive. Me. What you're doing is theft and fraud. You're risking everything Dad built. Veronica. You're jealous you don't get to live in the big house or drive the company car. I'm just making the brand work faster. Me. You're stealing from us. Veronica. Fine, stop being so uptight. It's only business. She stormed off, slamming the door. Going to the board, I debated handling it in family, but realized the board, composed of Dad's oldest friends and trusted advisors, had to know. I redacted personal jabs, left in just hard evidence. Emails, ledgers, and her profit summaries. At our next quarterly meeting, I said, I'm sorry it has to be like this, but I must protect the winery. One by one, trustees reviewed the material. Within 30 minutes, they passed a resolution, immediate suspension of Veronica's COO powers, forfeiture of her undisclosed profits back to Stanton Ridge's coffers. Investigation of Valley Oak. Imports for potential collusion. Veronica was escorted out by 2 trustees mid-meeting. The fallout. Veronica hasn't spoken to me since. She's filed legal papers to challenge the resolution, accusing me of elder betrayal and defaming her extended family. Side A, Dad's siblings, old guard staff. She was going to ruin everything. You did what Dad would have done. Side B, Elena's relatives, local socialites. You stabbed your own flesh in the back. You could have worked it out privately. Employees, whispers in the tasting room. Some applaud my decisiveness. Others feel we lost a charismatic hostess. Me. I see our quarterly projections are now solid. Inventory reconciled, tax filings corrected. But I walk the vineyard rows feeling hollow, wondering if I went too far. So, Reddit, AITA, for leaking my stepsister's secret profit skimming, emails to our family board, knowing it would cost her her role, her income, and possibly our relationship to protect the winery I inherited. I never wanted to destroy Veronica, only stop her theft. But by involving outsiders, I exposed her publicly and shattered what little trust remained. Where's the line between safeguarding a legacy and betraying your own family? AITA. AITA for leaking my roommate's secret side hustle earnings to our landlord after he refused to pay his fair share of rent. TLDR. I, 29F, rent a 2-bed apartment with my roommate Ethan, 31M. When I lost my job, we agreed he'd cover 60% of rent for 3 months. He agreed, but then missed payments. Meanwhile, I discovered he'd been secretly teaching crypto trading classes online for thousands of dollars. I forwarded proof of his earnings to our landlord so he'd enforce the original rent split, which got Ethan served an eviction notice. Now friends say I was ruthless, others say I was right to call him out. AITA. Once how we became roommates. My background. I moved to Austin 3 years ago for a marketing role at a startup. I'm reliable with bills, love baking sourdough, and always pay my share of chores, sometimes twice over if I see something undone. Ethan's background. Met him through mutual friends at a board game night. He works freelance as a video editor and DJs on weekends. Charming, easygoing, on the surface. He needed a place fast. I needed a roommate. We signed a 1-year lease and agreed to split rent 50-50, won $200 each. For 18 months, everything was fine. We had a chore chart, pizza nights, and a mutual respect for each other's space. My job loss and our new agreement. 6 months ago, my company went under. I lost my job and was scrambling to find something new. Worried about rent, I approached Ethan. Me. Can you cover 60-40 instead of 50-50 while I get back on my feet? I'll make it up once I find something. Ethan. Absolutely. Don't stress it. Here's 60% of the rent this month. 1,140. I felt relieved. Grateful even. The missed payments and growing suspicion. The next month, Ethan paid only $800 and said he'd cover the rest next week. 2 weeks later, another $800 advance. Then radio silence. Meanwhile, I'd scrimped on groceries, applied everywhere, and borrowed $500 from my parents to make rent. I texted him daily. He kept promising end of week, then next paycheck. His freelance gigs couldn't possibly explain that much money owed. When I pressed, he deflected. Me. Can I see your work schedule or invoices? We agreed on 60-40. Ethan. That's private stuff. I don't need to justify how I earn. I felt stuck. The Discovery Crypto Trading Masterclass. One evening, I was troubleshooting our shared Wi-Fi when I stumbled across an ad on our router's analytics. Make 5K month teaching crypto 101. The landing page was on ethanwinsbig.com, his personal site. Curious. I signed up with my burner email and saw a members-only dashboard showing 12 live students paying $500 each per month and a $6,000 MO recorded sessions hosted on his private server testimonials bragging about Ethan's no BS strategies, ND. Total, he'd earned over $20,000 in the last quarter alone, money he'd never mentioned, despite our rent agreement. My confrontation and his denial, I confronted him. Me. I know about your crypto classes. You've been making thousands. Why won't you cover rent? Ethan. You snooped through my shit. That's creepy. And besides, that income is business revenue, not rent money. Me. We're roommates. We have a contract. You promised. Ethan. You're entitled. If you want money, get a loan. Don't invade my privacy, we yelled. He called me money grubbing and a control freak. I left in tears. The landlord's involvement desperate, I sent our landlord, a no-nonsense property manager, a single email. Hi, Carla. I've attached proof of Ethan's recent earnings. He's repeatedly missed rent payments despite a clear 60-40 agreement. Please advise on enforcing the lease. I need to cover my full share. Within 48 hours, Ethan got an eviction notice for non-payment. He stormed out, calling me every name. In the book. I felt a mix of relief, rent covered, and guilt, friend evicted. Fallout and split opinions, friends. Side A. Good for you. He was freeloading on your kindness. Side B. You could have worked it out. You humiliated him publicly. Landlord. Applauded my initiative, said it saved her headache. Local community online neighborhood group now calls me ruthless for evicting a single dad. Ethan's publicly said he's a widower with a young daughter. Me. I've moved back home to regroup, but I miss my apartment and even miss Ethan a little, despite everything. My conundrum pro. I honored my side of the bargain while he lied about his ability to pay. I used factual proof, no falsehoods, to enforce our lease. Con, I secretly invaded his privacy, then weaponized that info and got him evicted. So Reddit. AITA for leaking my roommate's hidden $6,000 income to our landlord, resulting in his eviction. After he repeatedly broke our rent agreement, I never wanted to see him on the street, but I couldn't afford to lose my home. Where's the line between self-preservation and betrayal? AITA. ITA for leaking my fiancé's confidential performance review to his boss after he sabotaged my promotion, then claiming I was just protecting my career. TLDR, I, 31F, was up for a major promotion at my firm. My fiancé, Dan, 33M, secretly advised my boss against me, citing concerns he'd overheard, causing the role to go to someone else. I discovered his meddling, then anonymously forwarded his own confidential performance review, full of unflattering comments, to our managing partner. I've now torpedoed Dan's career while silently accepting the fallout. AITA. My career and Dan's help. I work at a mid-sized consulting firm. After 8 years of steadily rising through the ranks, I was in the final 2 for Director of Strategy, a coveted post with a sizable raise and real influence. I'd led our last 3 biggest client wins and mentored half the junior staff. Dan is in the same industry, but at a rival firm. We met at a conference 5 years ago, bonded over case studies, and fell in love. Early on, he'd offer feedback on my presentations. Great logic, but your slides look juvenile. He'd give insider tips. Our firm values X over Y. Tilt your approach. I appreciated it. When I made the director shortlist, he was thrilled. Until 2 weeks later, when he nervously admitted, "I spoke to your boss. I told him I'd heard you were out of your depth managing a global portfolio. I thought it'd help you prepare, but I might have suggested you weren't ready." He insisted he was just trying to help by giving constructive insights, and that it wasn't a big deal. My boss then promoted our colleague Sophia instead, citing concerns about my readiness for larger-scale leadership. Farm. Discovering his sabotage, I was devastated. I confronted Dan. Me. Why would you do that? Dan. I panicked. I love you and didn't want you to get hurt in that role. Me. You sabotaged me, under the guise of love. Dan. I'm sorry, it was stupid. I tried to move on. But a week later, I found an email in his trash. A PDF of his own performance review from 6 months prior, marked confidential. He'd downloaded it after our firm merged, and then forgotten it was in his inbox. The review was brutal. Dan struggles with adaptability, shows tendency to undermine colleagues, needs to improve emotional intelligence, especially in high-stakes scenarios. I realized if I leaked his confidential review to my managing partner, he'd face disciplinary action, perhaps even derailing his fast track to partner. The leak and its ripples, so I did. I forwarded the review with a note. FYI, Dan. Sent me this accidentally. Given recent concerns about his comments, thought you should have the full picture. Within days, Dan was put on a formal performance improvement plan. His rumors about me undercut my standing with certain partners, who now see me as pivotal rather than problematic. My firm offered me the next available director slot. We need someone we can trust fully. Dan called me furious, accusing me of weaponizing his private files. I said calmly, I protected my career just as you protected me. The fallout. At home, Dan's frozen me out. He insists I betrayed him, that I crossed a moral line. Among colleagues, some admire my decisiveness, others whisper I'm ruthless and can't be trusted. My friends, split. Some say good for you, others call it disgusting. Dan's firm, he's fighting to keep his role. Rumors say he's unlikely to make partner now. I've now accepted the director post and started onboarding, but I lie awake at night thinking, was exposing him just protecting myself, or did I stoop too low? So Reddit, AITA for leaking. My fiancé's private performance review, derailing his career, after he sabotaged my promotion and then claiming I was just protecting my career? Edit. I've offered to talk to Dan calmly, but he refuses. I never threatened to leak. I just sent it. I didn't expect how immediately it would derail him. Thank you for reading. I'm torn between vindication and guilt. AITA. Gerstier for secretly cancelling my best friend's lifelong play production after she stole my script idea, and then framing it as protecting my own work. TLDR. I, 29F, poured 3 years into an original community theatre script. My best friend Maris, 30F, pitched the same idea to our local arts council behind my back, got a production grant and began rehearsals, crediting herself as sole writer. I quietly convinced several board members that her script was too derivative of mine, leading them to cancel her production and reopen the grant. Now Maris and half our town think I sabotaged her unfairly. AITA. Origins of the Script 3. Years ago I started drafting Glass Wings, a coming-of-age drama about 2 sisters rebuilding a rural family farm in the 1970s after their parents' fatal accident. I hosted weekly writing workshops, workshop readings, and even small staged readings in my living room to refine characters, themes, and dialogue. Over time, Glass Wings became my passion project, centering on grief, sisterhood, and the tension between duty and self-actualization. I emailed draft versions to a handful of trusted friends, including Maris, who loved the script, and volunteered to direct a reading some months back. She saw how deeply I cared. The Arts Council pitch. 6 months ago, our town's Arts Council announced a grant for a new community production, complete with funding for cast stipends, set design, and local marketing. It was exactly the scale I'd dreamed of. I asked Maris if she'd co-produce Glass Wings if I secured the grant. She agreed enthusiastically, but privately said, "Let me polish the structure and you handle rewrites." I trusted her implicitly. I spent 3 weeks crafting a formal proposal, detailed scene outlines, budget, rehearsal plan, marketing, ideas, community outreach. It ate into my freelance writing income, but I didn't mind. This was my dream. The betrayal. 3 weeks later, I discovered Maris had submitted her own grant application without telling me, under the title Broken Roots. The logline, character names, and emotional arcs were uncannily similar to Glass Wings. She'd removed my notes, changed the sisters' names, and shifted minor details. Maris's pitch emphasized that it was her original work. She never mentioned my name or that I'd written earlier drafts. The Arts Council called her in, raved about Broken Roots, and awarded her the full grant. I was devastated and furious. Quiet gathering of evidence. I didn't rush to confront her. Instead, I reviewed every version of my drafts and hers, line by line, noting parallels. Both open with a storm scene in the barn that mirrors my Act 1 Scene Y. Both sisters share the same 3-word family motto: hold fast, stand tall. Both hinge on the identical final monologue, I am the storm's calm. I printed a comparative analysis and collected my own emails proving Maris had access to my drafts. I approached 2 Arts Council members who'd served on the original grant writing committee. They'd gone on to other boards and confidentially shared my side, my early workshop readings, the original script timestamps, and side-by-side comparisons. I never threatened her. I simply asked them to reconsider Broken Roots on grounds of originality. The production's cancellation. Last week, the Arts Council announced, after careful review, Broken Roots shows significant overlap with an earlier unpublished work by another local writer. We will be revoking this grant, reopening the application process, and refunding any funds already advanced. Maris's production was cancelled. Actors, designers, and even sponsors texted me in shock, demanding to know what happened. They all assumed I'd betrayed her. Maris confronted me in tears. "You set me up. You backstabbed me to save your precious little manuscript. You couldn't even talk to me." I reminded her that it was my manuscript. She'd taken it and presented it as her own. She yelled, "So you stole my creative momentum. You stole my moment." Community backlash. Half the town, outraged at Maris's public shaming. They see me as a jealous saboteur, the mean girl with the chalkboard. The other half quietly nod, saying, "I always thought Broken Roots felt familiar." Local press ran a fluffy human interest story about the actor who lost her stage and painted me as the villain. My friendships fractured. My roommate is avoiding me. My writing group has voted to disinvite me from next month's reading series. My question: I never wanted to destroy Maris. I wanted the original script acknowledged and supported. I tried private mediation. She refused. I gave the Arts Council the facts and let them decide. But watching her dreams collapse, and I feel awful. And our shared friends accuse me of weaponizing my privilege as a writer. Had her for gathering evidence and quietly persuading the Arts Council to cancel my friend's grant, rather than confronting her or letting her keep the production going under the assumption she'd eventually credit me. Edit. A few clarifications. I did offer Maris a face-to-face meeting to sort attribution. She declined. I never leaked our emails publicly, only shared with council members under promise of confidentiality. I'd spent more time on my script than on any paid gig in the last year. This project was everything to me. Thank you for reading. I'm torn between relief that my work is safe and guilt that I broke my best friend's heart. AITA. AITA for exposing my sister's secret decision to take our mother off life support, and my best friend's role in helping her hide it. TLDR. My sister, Alison, 34F, quietly removed our dying mother, Susan, 62F, from life support after a single hospital visit, without telling me or our father. My best friend, Marissa, 33F, helped cover it up by forging my signature on consent forms. I discovered the truth in Susan's medical records and confronted them both at Susan's memorial, reading their messages and showing the hospital paperwork to the entire grieving family. Now half of my relatives call me a heartless snitch, while the other half say I did the right thing. AITA? Part 1. Our mother's decline. When I, 31F, was a kid, our home was warm chaos. Sunday pancakes, softball, games in the front yard, Mom's cinnamon-scented hugs. She was the center of our world, a kindergarten teacher who laughed at Dad's bad jokes and always had time for Alison's diva tantrums or my anxious overthinking. Everything shifted 6 years ago when Susan was diagnosed with ALS. The downhill was slow at first, slurred speech, stumbling, then wheelchairs and ventilators. Dad, 65M, and Alison both threw themselves into her care. Alison, even though she lived 2 states away, flew home monthly, left her high-powered job in finance for weeks at a time, and took over Dad's managing medical stuff role. I stayed closer but worked full-time, so I handled weekends and hospital visits. Over the last year, Mum's condition worsened. She needed a feeding tube and 24-hour ventilation. She drifted in and out of lucidity. We talked to her about her wishes. She said she didn't want to linger in a body that was gone already, but she never signed an advance directive. Part 2. The secret decision. In January, Alison called a family meeting via video chat. She announced solemnly that the doctors said Mom had maybe weeks left. She asked if anyone wanted the ventilator removed when the time came. I agreed we'd revisit once Mum was more lucid. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Marissa, my best friend since college, who worked as a medical secretary at our hospital. She sounded panicked. "Jess, I'm so sorry. Alison just faxed an order for Susan's removal from life support. She's taking her off the vent tonight." My heart stopped. "You can't do that without Dad's consent," I yelled. "I know," Marissa whispered. "But Alison said Mom wouldn't wake up again. She said she has Dad covered. He's too broken. She needed my help, and I didn't know what to say." Marissa admitted she'd typed Dad's name on the consent form, matching his signature from past medical documents, and submitted it that afternoon. Part 3. Discovery and confrontation. I rushed to the hospital. Dad was asleep in the waiting room. I cornered Alison in the corridor. "What did you do?" I demanded. "It was her wish," Alison said, eyes shining. "I did the right thing. She was suffering." "But you lied to Dad. You lied to me. You forced Marissa into this." Alison shrugged. "She said yes." I left, furious. I spent the night poring over medical records, finding the faxed order, Marissa's employee login, even her email trail. I printed everything. Part 4. The Memorial Showdown at Mum's Memorial. 150 guests, teary speeches, soft piano. Alison stood to give her eulogy. She spoke of honoring Mum's wishes and praised Marissa for handling the paperwork. The room hushed. I stood up, heart pounding. I pulled the documents from my purse. Mom never signed any advance directive. The ventilator was removed because Alison and Marissa forged Dad's signature and lied to Dad and me. These are the fax logs, the emails, the signed but fraudulent consent form. I passed copies to Dad, who turned pale. I looked at Alison. "You decided her life and forced Marissa to help you without telling half her family or getting her true written consent." Marissa, her face ashen, tried to interject. "I'm sorry, Jess. I thought—" "No," I said. "You both need to own this." The room erupted. Alison fled. Marissa burst into tears. Part 5. Aftermath. Dad is devastated. He's torn between anger and relief that he now knows the truth. Alison says, "I ruined our mother's final tribute and publicly shamed us." Marissa professionally resigned. Hospital launched an investigation. Our extended family, some have disowned Alison, others claim I should have handled it privately. Me, I'm racked with guilt. Mom isn't even cremated yet, but I can't undo it. So, Reddit. AITA for exposing my sister's secret removal of our mother's life support and my best friend's forgery at the memorial. Edit 1. A few clarifications. Mom never signed a DNR or advance directive. She verbally expressed her wishes, but never legally recorded them. I didn't leak the documents online, only handed them to immediate family. I offered Alison a private chat beforehand. She refused. Edit 2. Update. 3 days later. The State Medical Board suspended Marissa's license pending investigation. Alison filed for guardianship of Dad, claiming he's incapacitated by grief. Dad told me he's grateful I spoke up, but heartbroken by our family's fracture. AITA for secretly recording my fiancé's admissions about wanting the inheritance life after I inherited my grandparents' farm. TLDR. My 30F. Grandparents left me their 120-acre family farm. My fiancé, 32M, has been pressuring me behind the scenes to sell it and cash out, but publicly he pretends to support me. I secretly recorded him admitting he wants the house, the land, and the money, and then played that recording at our engagement party in front of both our families. Now half believe I humiliated him and derailed our relationship. The other half say I was right to expose his hypocrisy. AITA. Background. The farm and my childhood. Growing up, I spent every summer on my grandparents' farm in rural Iowa. It wasn't glamorous. Old barns, a creaky farmhouse, fields of corn and soy. But it was home. My grandparents, Grace and Arthur, taught me how to milk goats, bale hay, and read the sky for coming storms. They showed me why a simple life rooted in the land can be a beautiful one. When I went away for college, and later moved to Chicago, to work in marketing, the farm became a distant memory, but I always carried it in my heart. 2 years ago, I got that call. Grandpa Arthur passed away peacefully at 92. A month later, Grandma Grace died at 90, with me at her bedside. A week after her funeral, I opened their will. The farmhouse and 120 acres went entirely to me. The small savings account, $60K, split among my mum, my uncle, and me. A note from Grandma. My dearest granddaughter, you're the one who always understood this place's magic. I know you'll keep it alive. I was stunned and deeply honored. I immediately said I'd keep the farm in the family and tend it as best I could, though I'd need time to figure out how. Enter my fiancé. Pragmatic Paul. I met Paul, 32M, at work 3 years ago. He's smart, ambitious, and charming. Exactly what attracted me when I moved to the city. We fell in love over weekend road trips, late-night takeout, and shared dreams of pricing ourselves into a house, saving for early retirement, and seeing the world. When he proposed last winter, I was over the moon. We set a date for summer 2026 and started planning a modest wedding. I told him about the farm inheritance, and he was thrilled, in public. Over brunch with friends, he praised the sentimental value, called me a campfire queen, and talked about how wonderful it'll be to have a country retreat. Privately, though, he had other ideas, private pressure and the secret recording within. Weeks of inheriting the farm, messages started coming. Babe, you need to sell it before property taxes double. You can't run a farm part-time, it'll drain you. Imagine putting that money into a downtown condo instead. Those texts came from him, but only in private. When I asked, do you think I should sell? He'd say, only if you want to. In front of my family, he was the dutiful partner, helping me clear out barns, planting seeds, promising to learn the tractor. By spring, I was exhausted trying to juggle 2 relationships, my grandparents' legacy and my fiancé's shifting stance. Deep down, I knew his heart wasn't in preserving the farm, but I needed proof. So one afternoon, I left my phone recording on the kitchen counter when he stopped by to help with taxes. He spouted things like, honestly, I'd love to see you sell this soon. Think about all the equity you'd get. You could pay off your student loans twice and actually live somewhere. With culture, I don't want a 200-mile commute to mow fields every weekend. I waited until he'd left, then saved the clip. My hands shook. I never wanted to trap him. I wanted honesty. The engagement party and my reveal, we held our engagement party 2 weeks later at a riverside pavilion. 50 guests, both families, friends, co-workers. I'd nearly decided to stay silent and work it out privately, but as I watched him pose for photos with my grandparents' old friends, I knew I couldn't keep living a lie. So during the toasts, I asked everyone to raise a glass, then hit play on my phone speaker. The room went icy as his voice echoed, "I'd love to see you sell this soon and pay off student loans twice. Don't want a 200-mile commute." I ended the clip and said simply, "That's what you really think?" Then I dropped my phone on the table and walked away. Immediate fallout. His reaction. He ran after me, shouting, "You betrayed me. That was private." His family. His mom burst into tears, saying I'd publicly humiliated the man she raised. My family. My mom grabbed my hand, whispering, "Thank you," while my cousin nodded grimly. Friends. Some applauded. Others turned away. A few quietly slipped out. The party. It ended abruptly. No one sang cheers. No one danced. We all dispersed under a cloud. 2 weeks later, the aftermath. Paul. He's moved in with his sister. Demanded I sell the recording or he'll sue for emotional distress. His parents refused to speak to me, called me vindictive and untrustworthy. My mom and uncle back me 100%. They want me to keep the farm and dump him. My friends split. Some say I should have had the conversation privately. Others say he deserved to be called out. Me. I can't sleep. I regret the public spectacle, but I can't stop replaying his words. I love him, but now I see how little he values what's important to me. Moral dilemma. On one hand, I feel justified. He was gaslighting me, telling me one thing to my face and orchestrating a cash grab behind my back. I didn't lie, cheat, or steal, and the recording was my only hard proof. On the other hand, I wonder if I betrayed a sacred trust. He believed conversations in our home were safe. Should I have confronted him privately, insisted on couples therapy, or broken off the engagement quietly? So Reddit. AITA for playing my fiancé's private recording at our engagement party to expose that he never wanted to keep the farm, thus derailing our relationship. Edit 1. Answers to common questions. Yes, I did warn him before the party that I might want answers. He promised he was fully on board. No, I haven't played the recording for anyone else. That snippet was the only part I shared. The farm is fully paid off, but taxes, maintenance run about $12K a year, hence his taxes doubling comment. Edit 2, update, 1 week later. Paul's filed an injunction to have me delete the clip. The lawyer said non-consensual recording can be a crime here. I've secured backup copies with 2 attorneys. I'm not deleting it. My grandparents' old neighbors have started crowdfunding to help with the farm's taxes. Some even offered weekend chores. AITA for refusing to give my stepbrother his half of the house our dad left me, even though I knew he thought he'd be getting part of it. Hi, Reddit. This one's long, messy, and bound to be controversial, so buckle in. I, 28F, was raised by my dad, Mark. My biological mom died when I was 7, a car accident. I still remember that night in terrifying detail. Flashing red lights, neighbors holding me, and my dad crying in a way I've never seen since. It shattered both of us. For a couple years it was just him and me. Grief made us inseparable. He was always involved. Made my lunches, walked me to school, learned how to braid hair badly but with pride. He tried to fill every role, and I clung to him like a lifeline. When I was 10, he started dating again. That's when Lauren entered the picture, now my stepmom. She had a son, Evan, now 27 MA, who was a year younger than me. Lauren and Evan moved in about a year later, and everything changed. The new family on paper, it made sense. Single dad, single mom, 2 kids close in age, instant family. In reality, it was a disaster. Lauren was nice enough, but she always gave off this Vibe that she was tolerating me. She was quick to correct me, sometimes harshly, and rarely praised me for anything. With Evan, she was the opposite. Supportive, affectionate, and indulgent. He could leave a mess and she'd chuckle. I'd forget to rinse a plate, and it was disrespectful. Dad tried to keep things balanced, but he was clearly in love with her and didn't want to rock the boat. So gradually I started fading into the background. Evan and I didn't get along at all. He wasn't cruel, just dismissive. We went to the same schools, had overlapping friends, but he always made it clear I wasn't his real sister. Once, when we were 14 and 13, he told a group of kids at a sleepover that I was just the dead mum girl who lived in their house. I overheard it. I never forgot it. College, distance, and closeness. Renewed, I moved out at 18. Full scholarship to a state university part-time job on the side. Evan stayed local, flunked out of community college, worked retail, moved back in, bounced around. Dad and I got close again during my college years. Weekly phone calls. He helped me build my first resume. He co-signed on my first lease. We re-established that sacred bond. He never said anything bad about Lauren or Evan, but I could tell. He missed being just my dad. When I graduated and got a good job, he beamed like he'd won the lottery. The diagnosis, 3 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It was fast, brutal. He was gone within 11 months. I was there for every step. I moved back temporarily to help. I was the one who took him to appointments, sat with him during chemo, cooked when Lauren couldn't handle the smell of hospitals, and made sure his paperwork was in order. Evan? Barely around. I get that some people avoid illness out of fear, but he lived 20 minutes away and saw Dad maybe once a week. 2 weeks before he passed, Dad pulled me aside and gave me the deed to the house. He said, "You took care of me. You've always taken care of me. I need to know someone I trust has this place. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty about this. This is my thank you," I cried. He cried. We didn't talk about it again. The will and aftermath after the funeral, the will was read. Most of Dad's small savings were split between Evan and me, a few thousand each. Personal items, tools, things like that were left to various people. But the house, a fully paid-off 3-bedroom place in a desirable suburb, wasn't in the will, because it was already legally mine. When this was revealed, Lauren went quiet. Evan didn't. He lost it. "You're kidding, right? Dad told me we'd split everything. You're not even really family. You think you deserve a whole house while I get $3,000 and a fucking fishing pole?" I said calmly. That Dad had made that choice himself. I hadn't asked for it. He called me a liar, said I manipulated our dad while he was sick, said I swooped in with my college degree and fake sympathy, and stole what should have been ours. Lauren just sat there dabbing at her eyes, whispering, "Mark wouldn't have wanted this." When I offered to show them the notarized transfer paperwork, they refused to look at it, called it tainted. The pressure begins. Since then, it's been a campaign. Lauren sent me a long email begging me to do the right thing and sell the house so Evan and I could split the proceeds. Evans posted vague jabs on Facebook about greedy people who forget what real family is. A few extended relatives have even chimed in, saying things like, "It's just a house. Is it worth losing your brother over?" I've explained many times, Emo, that I didn't steal the house. I didn't even ask for it. But Dad made his choice. I honored it. And here's the thing. I need this house. My rent was killing me. My job recently downsized. I'm using the house now, living in it, taking care of it. It's not a vacation home I can liquidate for sport. Still, guilt lingers. Evan may have been awful to me growing up, but he's not evil, just entitled, and deeply, profoundly sheltered by his mother. Part of me wants to sell the house and walk away with half, just to shut everyone up. But another part of me says, no, your father gave this to you. Not just legally, emotionally. He knew what he was doing. So Reddit AITA for refusing to split the house with my stepbrother, even though he genuinely believed he was going to inherit part of it? Get it? A few clarifications. The house was legally transferred to my name before my father died. I have the deed, the notarized documents, and a letter he wrote me that explains his decision. No, I don't plan on kicking Lauren out. She had already moved into a smaller place before the will was even finalized. I've lived here for 8 months. I maintain the property, pay taxes, and have made some upgrades. AITA for calling out my sister-in-law's livestream sponsorships during my mother's funeral after she used our grief for clicks. TL.dr. My 27F mother passed away after a sudden stroke. My sister-in-law, Becca, 29F, who's an influencer, turned both the wake and funeral into content opportunities, live streaming parts, hawking products, and selling sympathy candles. I confronted her at the graveside, reading her own promotional DMs aloud to assembled mourners. Half my family says I ruined the solemnity. The other half says I exposed her exploitation. AITA, our family and the tragedy. Me and Mom. I'm a graphic designer. My mom, Carol, was my best friend. Cooking classes, Saturday movies, her guiding hand through every breakup. 6 weeks ago, she suffered a massive stroke and died 2 days later. It was wild, raw, and heartbreaking. My husband and Becca. I'm married to Josh, 30M, Carol's only son. Josh's sister, Becca, is a micro-influencer with 50K followers. She's charismatic and persistent about monetizing every moment. Fitness tips, skincare hacks, even her toddler's outfits. Becca and I were always cordial but rarely close. Our worlds just didn't intersect much. Becca's sympathy content strategy. The Wake Day 1. Visitation. Becca set up her phone on a tripod in the corner, filming herself reflecting on loss for her Instagram story. In between sniffles, she said, "Hey lovelies, if you're dealing with grief, check out my affiliate link for these cozy blankets that helped me." Day 2, open casket. She did a 30-second Rippy Carol montage, overlaid with stock piano, product tags for loose leaf teas, calming chamomile, use code blessings, and a swipe-up link to buy morning merch. She then DM'd my cousin asking for more footage of Mum's favorite song moment, the funeral service morning. As guests arrived, she handed out sympathy candle sachets branded with her handle and a QR code to her Etsy store. When a family friend gently told her it felt inappropriate, she laughed it off. I just want to honor her memory and help people heal. Processional. She live-streamed snippets of the eulogies, zooming in on tearful faces, all under the caption, "Join me in celebrating a life well lived. Farewell, Carol," sponsored by Healing Teas. This point, my brother Josh and I were mortified and tried to ask her to stop. She promised to tone it down, but the moment Dad leaned on the casket to sob, she was filming again. Discovering the promotional plan that afternoon, I got a screenshot from a family group chat. Becca had sent this to a friend. Becca, friend, OMG, this is going to be gold. I've got brand deals lined up, grief journals, memorial jewelry, even a funeral home promo for peaceful send-offs. Planning a full goodbye vlog with affiliate codes. I felt sick. It wasn't just tone-deaf, it was predatory. The graveside confrontation at the cemetery. As the minister closed his remarks, I saw Becca reach into her bag for her phone again. That was it. I took a deep breath, tapped the mic Josh had borrowed for his reading and said, "Before Mum is laid to rest, I have something to share." I held up my phone, opened the screenshot and read it aloud. Becca, I've got brand deals lined up. Grief journals, memorial jewelry, full goodbye vlog with affiliate codes. I let the words hang in the cold air for a beat, then added, "That wasn't for Mum. It was for her view count and your commission. This isn't a commercial, it's her funeral." Murmurs rippled through the gathered mourners. Becca's face drained of color. I clicked off my screen, handed the mic back to the minister, and walked away. Immediate fallout. Guests and family. Some gasped, some applauded quietly. Many stared in stunned silence. Dad, my father-in-law, broke down crying. "She was our daughter," he said. "How could she do that?" Becca fled toward her car, sobbing and muttering, "You embarrassed me. You monster." Josh placed a protective arm around me. "You did what had to be done. The rest of the ceremony felt surreal, like moving through a dream. No one spoke of honoring Becca's work after that. 2 weeks later, the aftermath. Becca broke her silence with an Instagram story rant. My sister-in-law humiliated me in front of everyone. I was paying my respects and helping people heal in my own way. Lost 3 major brand partnerships who cited inappropriate brand alignment. Claims she's taking legal advice for defamation, even though she wrote the messages herself. Family, side A, my side and Carol's friends. You defended her memory. Side B, Becca's influencer friends. You're jealous and petty. Josh and me. We've been fielding calls from lawyers, sponsors, and a few sympathetic texts. People aren't buying your story. Sorry, not sorry. Me. I miss my mom every second, but I know I can't unsay those words. My reflection pro. I preserved the sanctity of mom's final goodbye. I exposed premeditated exploitation. Con. I turned a funeral into a public shaming, arguably escalating. Grief into spectacle. So Reddit, AITA for calling out my sister-in-law's promotional live streams and reading her own sponsorship plan aloud during my mother's funeral when she refused to stop monetizing our grief. I wanted to protect mom's memory, but did I cross a line by making her vice the center of attention? AITA, iced for reading my wedding planner friend's bad Yelp reviews aloud during my reception after she tried to turn my wedding into her ad platform. TLDR, I, 30F, hired my college roommate, Dana, 30F, who's now a fledgling event planner, to coordinate my wedding. She repeatedly pressured me to let her advertise her services at my reception, branded signs, flyers in guests' welcome bags, even a pop-up photo booth with her logo. On the night of the reception, I surprised her by announcing I'd read, allowed a few of her Yelp reviews, screen shared on the big screen, to help her refine her craft. Now half my guests think I was petty and cruel, the other half say I gave her exactly what she deserved. AITA, how we ended up here. Dana and me. We were inseparable freshman year, late-night study sessions, dorm room gossip, joint spring break, trips. After graduation, I went into tech. She drifted through odd jobs until she discovered event planning and started Dana Does Events. My wedding plans. My fiancé, Eli, 31 Mem, and I booked a local vineyard for May 2025, invited 150 guests and set an October date. We interviewed professionals, but when Dana offered a friend rate, half her usual fee, we felt guilty saying no. Plus, I did trust her at one point. She's creative and detail-oriented, or so I thought. The soft sell that turned pushy at. First, Dana's suggestions were helpful. Color palettes, linen swatches, vendor contacts. Then it shifted. Month 3. She asked if she could include her logo on our table number cards for exposure. Month 4. She proposed branded thank you cards from Dana Does Events. Your guests will appreciate the keepsake. Month 5. She quietly slipped a sample flyer into my welcome bag prototype. Book your next event with Dana. 15% off for wedding guests. Month 6. She pitched a sponsored photo booth corner, complete with a step-and-repeat backdrop reading Dana Does Events. Each time I said no, citing, we want a cohesive look, we're keeping sponsors minimal, or we want personal favors. She'd sigh, make understood noises, then next week mention it again more aggressively. By month 8, I found her drafting a newsletter to our guest list that ended with, P.S. Thinking of your own event? Let Dana make it unforgettable. The wedding day ceremony perfect. Vows, tears, sparklers in the vineyard. I thought maybe she'd backed off. Cocktail hour. I spotted a small table with her branded flyers, blatantly ignored when our venue coordinator said no promotional tables. I ripped them down. Dana glared. Reception start. I took the mic for our thank you speech. I began by thanking my family, our vendors, including the venue's in-house coordinator, and then turned to Dana. Dana, you've been my college roommate, my confidant, and my planner. You've hustled hard to launch your business. So, here's a little gift for your next gig. I cued the slideshow. 5 of her top Yelp reviews projected in full. planned my sister's quinceañera and missed half the details, never responded to calls. 1. Showed up 2 hours late with the cake. I had to ask the DJ to delay my own reception. 2. Charged extra for everything, from place settings to water bottles. 1. Lacked professionalism, took personal calls during the ceremony. 1. Won't answer emails once the deposit's paid. 1. The room fell silent. I said, I hope you see these as constructive feedback and wipe that smile off your brochures. Then I clicked off the slideshow and moved on. Immediate fallout. Dana buried her head in her hands, then stormed out mid-dinner. Guests. A handful applauded. Many looked stunned. Some whispered, I'd ruined her reputation. My new in-laws mortified. My mother-in-law pulled me aside. That was harsh, Mom. My old friends mixed. One whispered, she had it coming. Another muttered, so brutal. The venue owner later texted me, if you ever need a planner again. Maybe not her. I spent the rest of the night apologizing to bewildered vendors and consoling guests who asked if we were okay. Eli held my hand and said, are you happy? Because they sure aren't. Fax. 2 weeks later, the aftermath. Dinah's business, Yelp flagged the incident and flagged her page for potential inauthentic behavior. She's lost 2 upcoming bookings already. Dana and me, no contact. She blocked my number and deleted me on social media. Our friends, half avoid me, half private message, OMG, best roast ever. My wedding photos, one of the photographers. Candid shot shows my face mid-slideshow. Smug, triumphant, a little wild. It's gone viral in our friend group's chat. Me, I keep replaying that moment, feeling a mix of righteous satisfaction and sinking guilt. My take pro. She refused every polite boundary, turned my personal celebration into her marketing stunt, and showed no respect for our relationship. Con. I ambushed her privately, publicly shamed her, and possibly crushed her fledgling business in front of people she knew personally. So, Reddit. Had her for exposing my friend planner's worst Yelp reviews on the big screen at my wedding reception after she pestered me to turn my celebration into her ad opportunity. I wanted to protect my day and my guests from her constant promo. But did I go too far by weaponizing her own customer feedback? AITA,